Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of the United States of a Movie podcast, the movie podcast that makes Monday fun day. Every start of every week now comes with a great discussion as we try to figure out and answer the unanswerable question of trying to define each state in the United States by just one movie. Basically, an impossible question to answer, and that's why I don't try to answer it alone. I do it with my two gargantuan movie nerd friends who join me once again. First of all, Ryan Sandler, welcome back to the show, buddy.
Oh man, it's great to be here. This was the first episode I think we've done in a long time that felt like this week took me 3 weeks to get through some of these movies.
You were certainly on the struggle bus when it came to some of these movies. I mean, we did manage to pick something that meant we had like about 8 hours of movies to watch because they are not short movies. At least two of them aren't. No. And then, of course, we've also got sitting, as always, in the middle of his local movie store, Will Hirsch. Will, welcome back to the show, buddy.
Thanks, guys. We got to wrap this up pretty quick because I got to get down to the box social later. Yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna have some interesting things to answer for today, Will.
No kidding. I did it to myself. I admit.
Because the state that we are doing this week is Oklahoma. And the reason that we're doing Oklahoma is because the movie that I suggested that we do, that I chose, is a brand new movie. It's still in theaters. It will be coming to Apple Plus soon enough. It's 2023's Killers of the Flower Moon by Martin Scorcese. Now, once I said that, well, first of all, Ryan was like, oh man, now I have to go and sit for 3.5 hours in a movie theater.
I gotta pay money to do a thing? It's my nightmare.
It's basically like binging an entire season of true crime Martin Scorsese on Netflix is essentially what it's like doing. But after I announced Oklahoma, there was lots of umming and erring, and Will made the bold statement of being afraid that we would go to movie jail if we didn't do a certain movie. That now means that Will is in movie jail. Which movie did you choose, Will?
I was going to be locked up no matter what happened. So I picked Oklahoma, funny enough. The Rodgers and Hammerstein musical extravaganza in the biggest quotes ever. And I regret every life decision that led me to that moment. It's
1955's Oklahoma, directed by Fred Zinnemann, who also directed High Noon, From Here to Eternity, Day of the Jackal. This guy's got many Academy Awards.
All those way better movies. Like I would recommend each of those like 1,000 times over this piece of crap.
I think watching this though, it got to a certain point where I had this like ethereal out of body experience, and then weirdly started to enjoy it.
I know what you mean.
Kind of like it hits a point where I'm like, wait, this movie is nuts.
Yep, that's actually when I finished the movie, Mrs. was like, oh right, so how was it? And I go, really weird, actually.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know.
Not what I was expecting. Definitely didn't imagine a drug-induced hallucination 20-minute long dance number.
It's
halfway through.
It's like the director of this movie discovered color. And he's just like, just give me all of it. Just give me all of it. Load it in there.
Yeah.
Get it in.
I can definitely see that. It was a strange watch. It was also like 2 hours, 20 minutes. And the thing is, I had real trouble keeping track of how long I'd been watching it for. And I did remember that I was like, I was afraid I'd only been watching it for 20 minutes, paused, and it had been going for an hour. So I tell you what, it does go along at a pretty fast clip. I only though, like Oklahoma, of course, being the very famous musical, I knew the opening song and the ending song and the 15 songs in the middle I've never heard in my entire life.
And ever. I hope none of those songs were where they do the thing where every song is like an exposition dump, because I skipped through every single one.
Dude, they were, yes, I was so funny because I saw you texting about that and I go, wow, he's like missing the plot.
I think I was like, I was 20 minutes and 4 songs into it, and I was like, hey man. And the one thing I never do, if like a testament, like whenever I'm watching a movie, I will sit through and watch it. Even if it's terrible, I will watch every fucking minute of it just so I can justify talking shit about it if it's bad, right? And this was one of the first movies where I had to I had to stop myself and watch it in 2 sittings. which took me 4 years, ostensibly.
It took me a while as well.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's there is a thing about it where I couldn't hate it too much because there's a nostalgia to the movie that reminds me of a lot of like old school like Walt Disney productions, kind of that era.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm a big fan of Disneyland and stuff. Not so much their movies, but like there's an element there that I was a little nostalgic for. And then Rod Steiger would come in every once in a while and save the movie.
Yes.
Very much so. I would agree. Yeah. Rod Steiger playing, I think, Hollywood's first incel.
Film. Yeah. And knocking it out of the park.
Yeah.
Famously from Mars Attacks, just to point out.
He was the that movie. I've definitely got notes on this movie. It was a sort of an interest. I know what you mean though. I mean, I thought I'm when it comes to this podcast, I am a completionist. I'm watching all of these movies. I mean, like, for example, the movie that Ryan, you selected is a movie I've only seen about 100 times. I've probably seen it 5 times this year alone. Tell us about your selection, the greatest movie ever made, 10 out of 10, no notes, perfect.
Arguably the greatest movie about tornadoes in the history of film. I picked 1990, was it 96? Twister.
96.
Yeah, baby.
Twister, directed by who?
Jan de Baan.
Jan de Baan. A young Adam Driver.
Yes. As the tornado.
As the tornado, yeah.
That movie, and I'm not saying it like it's mine and my missus's favorite movie, but it's definitely in the top.
Which is crazy to me. I feel like you say that pretty often.
It is our favorite movie.
Like if there was a way to combine twisters and battleships, would you just fucking explode?
Yeah, if you add some White House Down on top of that, then right there, it's like straight up just
somebody write that down.
The perfect goddamn movie. No, Twister is a movie. I mean, I still remember seeing it in theaters, blowing me away. I've loved it the whole time. And then when I met Mrs., she loves Twister. And then we have a thing because we live in Texas where tornadoes.
You guys did the Spider-Man point.
Yeah, but we do whenever there's a storm, like there was yesterday, a big storm rolled through. We sit down and watch Twister, which is kind of messed up when you think about it.
Yeah. You're like, so what do you think on F3, F4?
One thing
takes a drag of a cigarette and goes F5.
No, don't say F5.
Don't say that. Oh my god! What are you doing?
I've done it. Oh my god!
Never mentioned.
I've summoned the Candyman of twisters.
Oh man!
Quick!
You want twisters? Because that's how you get twisters.
Spit your drink out and look up at like. Has anyone ever seen an F5? Only one of us.
Everyone trembles.
They said that to her like she dropped the N-word. Like it was like driving me insane.
Hey man, there's no note. Perfect movie. I just honestly can't wait to get into it because Will had comments about Twister, and last night while watching the movie, I live texted the entire movie to the guys, explaining to them why they're wrong and I'm right. So this is going to be. We're finally going to get some disagreement on this podcast. I cannot wait.
Finally, what?
I tell you what we're going to do. We're going to save that. Save that for later.
Not every episode. To our listeners, not every episode can have a wraith or a stone cold or a sudden death. I get that. And we're working on it. Trust me. But at least we picked something as part of this trio to kind of balance out the other very heavy subject matter of one and the terrible music of another.
Well, and there are connections between all 3 of these movies. For example, with Killers of the Flower Moon and Oklahoma, it essentially is that women are seen as property and are up for sale. And then between Oklahoma and Twister, you have that moment in Twister where they're literally singing the song from Oklahoma. So, it overlaps.
This is a crossover episode?
There's a Twister painted in the background during the big tripping scene of Oklahoma as well, which you probably skipped through.
Definitely. I watched this movie in a fugue state. I got to be honest with you. I was on like 4 Xanax.
It was weird. About the 55-minute mark, I definitely did a blink where I went, did I blink for 5 seconds?
Yeah. And this movie's not for me. Like it's, I remember, and I was talking to my parents. I mentioned this because my stepdad, he loves these older films. And I was like, oh, I'm watching Oklahoma. And before I'd even seen it, he goes, oh, it's kind of a sad. He's like, oh, that's a sad one. And so now I'm going into this movie with really weird expectations of how it's going to end, and then it ends. I'm like, what the fuck is he talking about?
It was a weird movie. You know what? Let's go. Let's continue down the Oklahoma train. It stars Gordon McRae as Curly, Shirley Jones as Laurie, who for some particular reason is playing hard to get with Curly. So as a result of that hard to get, is kind of flirting with Rod Steiger's Judd, who is the farmhand on the farm that she lives on with her aunt Ella, played by Charlotte Greenwood. And essentially, the plot of this movie is very, very, very simple. It's who's going to take her to the box social is essentially the plot. The first hour and a bit of the movie is all taking place just on the farmhouse as people talk about who's going to go to the box social. But that being said, it does involve a weird part in the middle and ends up with a truly strange ending. Considering they spend 2 hours, 15 minutes deciding who goes to the box social, the actual build-up of I'm going to kill you and now I'm going to get killed, 8 minutes max.
The third act is essentially the entire movie of A Time to Kill. Like it's just it becomes this insane insane legal drama.
Yeah, totally nuts. Like
that's 12 seconds long.
It's less than 10 minutes before the movie ends, it decides to have a plot, and you're just like, oh, okay,
yeah.
And then James Whitmore, who plays, does he also play Curly from? No, he plays Brooks from Shawshank Redemption. He turns up again.
Oh, he was
in Them! Exclamation mark.
Yes.
He likes movies with exclamation marks. Honestly, if Shawshank Redemption had an exclamation mark on the end, that would be the unofficial James Whitmore trilogy, right?
Oh my God, it'd be a very different film. Could you imagine the songs?
Oh man.
So yeah, the movie opens with the absolute classic song, which is what a beautiful morning. So it's like, oh, okay. It starts and it's very familiar because I think all of us have at some point heard one of our parents, aunts, grandparents, or something like that sing that song, right?
My dad, and not just that song. My dad sings songs from this movie all the time. I've heard that specific opening song. I've heard my entire life.
Yeah.
I don't even know if he likes the movie. It's just he pretty much all the songs throughout all this. The Oklahoma one, like towards the end, like Oklahoma's okay. Like I've heard that my entire life. My dad sings a lot, by the way, but like this is for some reason this soundtrack I have heard since I was essentially born. So I'm very familiar with all the music in this movie.
It's possible you were. It's possible. It's possible you were conceived to this film.
Very likely, very, very likely.
And you are 140 years old.
Which is why my physique has turned out more like Judd than anything else.
Your parents' safe word is Oklahoma.
Judd energy. I think you're understanding how famous the soundtrack to this film was. Like, I think this was and still is a huge soundtrack as far as movies go.
Well, it's huge, but it's because it's super long, man.
The movie is 70% soundtrack. Like
it is, which means that Ryan only watched 20 minutes of movie,
and honestly, didn't miss a thing.
It's so while there is like the interesting love triangle of Curly, Laurie, and Judd, we also have the sort of interesting B plot of Ado Annie, whose biggest thing is that she's just horny. Yeah. She's horny and she wants to fuck everybody, which I love this because then, there's Will, played by Gene Nelson. He's great, by the way. He's a real talent. He's the one that was dancing and singing in that railway station at the beginning.
The quote unquote, oh no, I'm thinking of the quote unquote Persian man.
No, exactly. That's Ali Hakim, played by Eddie Albert. He's my favorite character, actually, by far.
Hands down. Persian man doing a Persian man doing some semblance of what seems like an Irish accent.
That's what was confusing me the entire time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
When he first started talking, I thought, oh, it's an Irish thing. And then you see the back of his, and it says Ali Hakim, and I go, and then he starts talking about Persia, and I'm like, what?
Yeah. But it works. It works.
Hey, man, my grandfather was born in Persia, so technically, I've got that Persian accent going right now, perfectly, nailing it. But they had that really entertaining sort of thing going at the same time. But
and she, I wrote in the text thread, she was giving me this strong Joan Cusack energy. Like she just kind of had that, like the way she was talking, I was like, oh my God, it's just, is this where Joan Cusack gets it from? It's great.
She speaking of her being horny all the time, she plays Violet in It's a Wonderful Life, where again, she's horny all the time. Like this is all this actress did, was she's like, is there a horny character? I'll do it.
But then also Shirley Jones went on to play the horny old lady in Grandma's Boy. So I mean,
that's true.
It was fantastic. I think David Spade is like, or no, Nick Swartzen's like, she's like, I gave Charlie Chaplin a hand job. And she goes, was he silent? She goes, not when I got done with him. It's great. We should be watching Grandma's Boy instead of this movie.
So Will, okay, Will, like you said, you grew up with this soundtrack being sung by your father. This, though, was your first watch, correct?
Yeah, I've never seen it before. I think I've seen the opening. I don't know.
So do me a favor. So just talk me through your initial reactions, because I'm like, you are our old Hollywood guy.
Yeah.
You brought Giant to the table when we were doing Texas, an excellent movie. This was very sort of similar in that kind of way. It's, Shane is another one you've brought. Again, there was at a point, there was an entire fight/dance number, which was the plot of Shane, which is the ranchers versus the farmers. So just take us through, you've got a lot of historical, like, Hollywood history. What did you think about it?
Well, I thought this sucked. It's one of these, like, it's been a big blind spot for me. Like, the only other Rodgers and Hammerstein musical I've ever seen is Sound of Music, which is a great movie. But so this is one where I was like, okay, we've landed on Oklahoma. I just feel like, just because the songs are so familiar to me, it's such a part of film history. All right, let's pull the Band-Aid off. Let's check it out. And I wish I left a Band-Aid on. But, it's funny because, like, I've recognized some of these actors and from other projects where I think they're better. But overall, like, this is kind of that time in film history where they were adapting, like, a lot of musicals. And the whole idea is whatever we did on stage, let's do in the movie. Let's not really change it. Like, from what I was reading, this is extremely close to the musical.
Very
like
little
for the
changes.
Stage musical.
Yeah.
It's shot that way. It's shot just like this is what you'd see on stage. So when I think modern audiences are watching it, they're not quite watching it with the right context, because this is the equivalent of, like, watching Hamilton on, like, Disney Plus. It's like you can't go see it on Broadway, so we're going to film it and show you what it is, essentially.
Right.
So it's serving not quite the same purpose as a normal film. That being said, in general, I am not a musical guy. I don't like most of them. I think most of them are bad. Every time I'm like, I think I like this one, every musical theater kid I know is just like, no, that's the bad one. And so I've given up trying to like musicals. I'm just okay.
I can love musicals. There are some great musicals. And so when I went in, I definitely went in with okay. But it's almost like, especially after watching Killers of the Flower Moon, which is definitely not a way of, like, they're not pulling any punches for how to look at or to tell the story.
A terrible musical.
The music was actually really good, though. Oklahoma, it's like, it's not so much looking through the history of Oklahoma, like with rose-tinted glasses, but it's sitting in a bed of roses covered in rose, sort of like, it's so innocent. It's so far from reality, apart from, like you were saying, Rod Steiger. Every time he turns up, his character Judd really is, like, the only character that actually feels, and, like, when he's doing, that guy, he's one of the guys that does acting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He is great. Acting the shit out of that character.
He is in a completely different movie from everyone else. He's actually very intimidating. You're actually kind of worried what he's going to do. I mean, he's one of my favorite actors. I mean, Mars Attacks, is obviously that. And End of Days is where I was, like, introduced to him. He's the priest in End of Days. That movie rules, by the way.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
In the Heat of the Night is where he won his Academy Award, he's fantastic in that. And Waterloo is my favorite performance of his, where he's Napoleon. And it's like him at the Battle of Waterloo, and you see a guy psychically, like his psychology just break. He just shatters, and you see him go insane as he loses that battle. It's like an incredible performance. So he's an amazing actor. Everyone else in this, their performances, their dialogue, it's all like, I don't know what old Hollywood like stage writers, screenwriters were thinking, but there was a time in where every person was supposed to be a young person. You either were old or you were young, and if you were young, all your dialogue sounds like a 5-year-old would say it. Like all their ideas of like love and romance is all like real little kid level logic, and they're making like 40-year-olds say that dialogue, and it's so annoying, and I hate it. I hate everything about it.
That's a good point. That's a good point. That's a great way of putting it. I mean, especially when it comes to Laurie, the lead sort of like female character, is that, yeah, I mean, fundamentally, some of her behavior is that of a 6-year-old.
Yeah.
She's just, it's just, he's not paying me enough attention, so meh. And then, okay, I'm not doing this. And it's like, you know, I'm like, they had that the song where all the girls are singing together. I mean, the thing about it is that I will say is that when you do watch the movie, like the dancing is fucking incredible in this movie.
Everything about the look and feel of this movie is unbelievable. Like the camera work, like it's a stunning looking. It looks like a fucking painting, but it does like it feels very much like a typical Disney template. You know, I know it's not a Disney movie, but it feels like that. Even
I know what you mean. You almost imagine animated characters were going to turn.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. You could see anthropomorphic like foxes or whatever.
Singing penguin or something. Why is there a penguin in Oklahoma?
Yeah, and it would work. But even like Judd's character, like his motivations as like a villain are so just rooted in pure just jealous guy.
Yeah, no, it's pure incel. Yeah. It's pure incel. Yeah. He is, and literally, he's like, it's the if I can't have you, I'll kill you.
Yeah,
you know, it's like it's a classic character that, and it's not even a character. It's just based off real people that exist today. And go out and just, you know, do horrible things.
Yeah,
as you often see.
And he does it so well that you think that he's really gonna do something horrible by the end of this. I for sure thought it was like, oh, I've seen this before. The main character's something horrible is gonna happen. Like
it's gonna be like West Side Story. They're gonna
like some tragic event.
Curly at the end. Yeah.
Nope.
It was we did have Chekhov's stabby telescope. Which the fascinator that turns up at the beginning that we quickly learn 3/4 of the way through the movie is actually a Mission Impossible level murder device that Judd is he's like, wait, he's just lost that.
What I thought he had a knife, like an actual knife.
No. So that's
what he had?
Yeah,
the telescope,
Will comes back with that thing called the fascinator. That, you know, I guess you twist it and you see a naked woman or something like that. Aunt Ella finds very funny, but
that's the
if you twist it a certain way, a knife comes out and stabs someone through the eye. So I did like how right after Judd loses the really, really contentious auction where Curly sells everything he owns. So I guess he's just destitute now. And then Judd comes up and goes, "Oh, no hard feelings here. Have a look into this."
Yeah.
Take the stabbing device.
Yeah.
And Curly was gonna do it too.
And he's just like,
sure, why
stop
not?
Actually rubbing my hands.
Yeah, he did look like, yes, good, you're going to do it.
It's the only time Judd smiles in the whole movie, and nobody finds it suspicious.
And it's still terrifying.
It's yes. I mean, the thing is, I mean, Will's nailing it there, but like, is that Rod Steiger's scary in this movie? Like I said, he's like you're saying, he reminded me of. You're saying he's like in a different movie. He reminds me of James Dean in Giant. You know, like the level of performance that he's giving, and the fact that when he is on camera, you can't really take your eyes off him.
And I think I read that James Dean, they wanted him for this movie too, right?
James Dean and Paul Newman were both sort of looked at for this movie. That's right. But I think, like, I was reading that, you know, James Dean died not long after, you know, as well. But also that he was kind of like, he was still in that interesting part of his career where he was kind of like, his legend was there, his ego was there. He was still experimenting, whereas I think Rod Steiger is much more just like established.
Although we were robbed of scenes with Rod Steiger and James Dean, which that's upsetting. I don't know this main actor, and I forget his name already.
Gordon McRae.
But he didn't do much after this. Like he did another Rodgers and Hammerstein musical and then a couple other movies, and then pretty much dropped off. It's like sporadic. He did a couple things here or there, but
Yeah, I mean, like,
You know.
see, like I said, there are musicals that I could really enjoy. Like, I love Hairspray. That movie is
Mhm.
addictingly fun. But like, is that in the way that this musical goes? Is that like Curly, Gordon McRae? All of his singing is like this. You know, there's no like acting in the singing.
Yeah.
It's all just everyone
Yeah.
sings love. It's just this really classic way. I guess this is what you do when you're doing a musical
Yeah.
in the 50s, and it's like it kind of like weirdly takes you out of it. Instead of feeling like you're in the moment, it's more just like a pause, spotlight, solo. You know what I mean?
Compared to something like Grease, where it's kind of enveloped into like the story a little bit better.
More. You know,
Yeah.
it's like they're acting with their voices. You know what I mean? It's like,
it's still shot very much like it's for the stage, and so they're singing like it's for the stage, and it's very awkward and weird.
But it's still choreographed so well. Like it still looks.
Oh yeah,
fantastic. It looks awesome. But you're right. It's very flat. Like
my favorite part. Well, the thing is that I agree with what you're saying, but the thing is, as the movie goes on, it becomes more and more theatrical. Because for the first sort of like hour, it's being shot outside. It's on location. It's like that kind of deep production value that we were talking about in Giant and in Shane.
Oh yeah.
And things like that. And then we get to sort of the box social. And of course, that's a soundstage. You can tell there's the 20-minute hallucination scene. That's a soundstage because the backgrounds are painted. And then we kind of end up with that final scene. Again, feels very much like we're on a soundstage. It's like they did the first hour shooting on location, and then they shot the rest of the movie on sound stages, which was kind of weird to me because like we've established this idea of being outside and being.
I was wondering that too. I mean, that whole box social scene felt like they were just in a fucking warehouse, like with the matte paintings in the back, and I was wondering why that needed to happen. I'm sure it was a production thing, but
I think they were having trouble because they didn't shoot any of this in Oklahoma. They shot
Arizona, right?
all the outdoor stuff in Nogales, Arizona, which because I think Oklahoma had been so developed by this point. There was like no farmland, so they had to go somewhere else.
Yeah,
and I think they had a lot of trouble growing corn.
Ironically, especially considering the plot line of Killers of the Flower Moon, or not I say plot line, but the true story of. They said they couldn't really shoot in Oklahoma because of all the oil wells.
Yeah,
it'd be a distraction, and because it wouldn't fit with the timeline of having oil wells in the background in 1905, because this is set before Oklahoma even becomes a state, which is kind of like the plot line. So, but at the same time, right, that as much as like, you're talking about the box social scene and stuff, and you realize, all right, they're putting on a performance, but the best scene in the movie for me is that scene I was sort of telling you about where Will comes back, Gene Nelson's character, and they have that whole dance scene next to the train at the train.
Oh, incredible.
So the train comes in, they do that, then they're on the train as the train pulls out, and he ends up by jumping onto the horse.
So cool.
That for me was like, all right, at that point I was like, this movie might be okay. Like that was an incredible dance number, incredible production value, but it just kind of like you were saying, Will, it became that sort of simplistic, I'm 6 years old kind of story that I'm like, and it's all just a bit, every girl is just kind of acting the same. Every boy is just kind of acting the same. And, I was like, it was a strange watch, this.
Yeah, like I said, there's a nostalgic element to it that makes it like where I'm like, okay, I'm not hating this,
right?
I'm not loving it, but there is a charm there that I will not be revisiting. I will not be watching this one again.
Is charm the right word? I think we're so close to the right word between nostalgia and charm, but at the same time, it being also just so out of date.
Yes, it's definitely old and dusty. This movie, in a way where like I could see a movie that's made even earlier, where Casablanca does not feel this way at all. Casablanca feels like fresh and new, like all these years later. This feels like it's covered in mold.
Yeah,
even
opposite of timeless. It is a product of its time.
Right. Yeah. It definitely feels like it's steeped in that period, and this feels like such a studio production of like, hey, this musical is popular. Let's just get it on the screen and get it out there. And I think they famously shot it on 2 different film types, simultaneously. And
they did. So they shot it on 35 millimeter. And they shot it on something called Todd AO, which is like 70 millimeter, which is basically, I guess, like IMAX, right?
Yeah.
But so essentially there's 2 versions of the movie because they shot it once on one and once on the other. So there's different takes that are in
nuts.
each versions of the movie, which is a really weird thing to sort of say.
Release the Judd cut.
Yeah. They needed to do that thing they did for Tommy Wiseau's The Room, which is you have two different formats, but you put the cameras right next to each other so that every frame is slightly off. That's how you do it.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer.
I've never seen The Room, actually.
What state does it take place in? Oh my God.
Is it San Francisco, technically? I
think so.
Oh God,
yeah.
yes, you're right. All right.
Yeah.
We know what our next pick for California
Definitely
is going
watch The Room and not The Disaster Artist, even though that's...
Well, that's the thing, because I saw The Disaster Artist was on
right.
one of the streamers the other day, and I haven't watched that either, because I haven't watched The Room. And I was like, you've got to watch The Room first, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And to be clear, we're not talking about the movie Room with
Brie Larson.
Not the good movie with Brie Larson.
Oh
my God, that's
a Tremblay. Yeah,
fucking brutal one.
I haven't seen that one. She won the Oscar for that, didn't she?
Yeah.
Wow, we digressed quite quickly there.
We started talking about
everything not to talk about Oklahoma.
I was a big fan of Aunt Ella. Her character.
Yes.
So Charlotte Greenwood, everything she was doing was fun.
The bit at the box social where she just pulls out a fucking loaded gun and is just waving it around. I'm like, whoa, this is what's gonna happen here? Nothing.
Yeah.
Fucking nothing.
Yeah, opposite of Chekhov's gun.
All of the tension of this
doesn't do anything.
Well, okay,
she's great.
Let's kind of address it.
And also super fucking horny.
Yeah, yes, she is horny. She's definitely like, Curly, I'd fuck your brains out, if I was a younger lady. And even then, let's do it.
That's the first line she says.
Yeah, very much. She's smacking people's asses and grabbing things.
She is literally churning butter in that moment when he walks up.
She's literally like this as well.
Oh my God.
Like she's stroking this massive shaft. And she's like, oh, Curly.
Making contact with Curly.
Yes. Also, I think we're glazing over the fact that we briefly talked about this in our text thread too, that this is 1,000% the prequel or the origin story of Curly from City Slickers.
Yep. Yeah, that's a true story. This is where Curly comes from.
Yep.
This is the legend of Curly's not gold. The legend of Curly.
He talks about the love that he had. I mean, it's all there, guys. It's all there.
Yeah. I mean, at the very least, this is definitely where they got the name Curly from.
It's the only thing that got me through the second half of this film was pretending it was a Curly
his origin.
That and fast forward. So there's two things I want to sort of definitely address. Is first of all, let's get into the smelling salts. So like I said, Ali Hakim. Actually, there's three things I want to talk about. Is the Ali Hakim, the hilarious bit where he's like, where Will is just, okay, I keep saying Will, but let's go with Gene Nelson's character, Will, is kind of a bit stupid in a way. And Ali Hakim is like that bit where he convinces Will that he's outsmarted him. He basically gives him money. Because Ali Hakim is basically, Adewale really wants him. Ali Hakim's entire plot thing is that women want him and he doesn't want them.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I don't wanna, but I gotta, in his weird Irish Persian accent. So that whole thing. But the bit I want to talk about is the 20-minute trip scene. So he sold Laurie these smelling salts that essentially says, this is it's the princes or whatever of in Persia, they do this, they smell it and they think about what they wanted an answer to, and then they would get the answer to come clear. So she does it, and it kicks off this scene where they replace the two main actors with dancers who then dance out the hallucination, but Rod Steiger plays his character in it. Discuss.
Yeah, that really confused me. I did actually really like she approaches the other version of herself and then it switches and it's the dance. I did like that. I was like, oh, that's actually
with Curly
that's kind
too.
of cool.
Like he was in like shadow and he goes in. So I understood the premise of what was happening. I was just kind of like, why? But then it gets to basically like ballet. It becomes a dance that tells the story through dance. So, but was anyone else confused, or what did you guys think of that scene?
I skipped it.
I was watching. I was also confused a little bit. I did like the artistry involved in it. I was like, it's cool that it's now like two dancers. But then Rod Steiger comes in playing the character, and I'm like, well, now wait a minute. Now I don't know what this is trying to tell me. I don't know what's going on. But
Was
essentially,
it just because the lead actors couldn't dance that well?
I think that's probably
had
a
to have
huge
been.
portion,
Yeah.
part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, because there's a part where the dancer version of our goes up, and the stairs lead to nothing. It's like a drop off right after that. And I was kind of like, she goes right up the top without going over, and I was like, that takes some skill because she really does stop right at the last second. And I'm like, so clearly these had to be trained dancers to do this. You can't ask your lead actor to do that.
Oh, they
But,
very much,
yeah,
because it becomes like ballet. I mean, you see it in the first 5 minutes of the two characters, the Curly and Laurie characters who've been taken over by dancers, do some incredible dance work. And I just wonder if this is kind of like you were saying, Will, about how they're like, let's just take what we had on the stage and we'll do it in the movie. That they were like, they realized that in this part of the movie, we need professional.
See, I think they were trying to project their true self into these characters, and those, and in their mind, they were great dancers, but in reality, no.
So you think that there's like some meaning and depth, some thought put into it.
Again, to clarify, I did not watch this scene. I am merely projecting my true self.
Your emotional truth.
And you're the one adding depth and thought here.
Yeah.
Whereas I think that this movie is as shallow as the graves in A Time to Kill. Like I think that there's just no depth in this movie whatsoever.
Yeah.
It's an interesting scene because again, it's quite dramatic because it plays out kind of her hallucination is that she's going to marry Curly and Judd's going to murder Curly.
which is what I thought was going to happen.
Which pretty much is kind of what almost happens.
Right.
Because she kind of
barely.
She comes out of a hallucination to be face to face with Judd, who has like had a bath for the first time in 2 years and combed his hair. So now he's like,
total smoke show.
Clearly she's going to want me now. He deserves her. She ditches him. Oh, on the way to the box social with some incredible stunt work. Can we talk about that for a second? The runaway horses with the two people on the carriage and going through the water and trees. I was like, these people are going to die.
It was like Ben-Hur level stunts for like a second. It was like, oh wow, okay.
Yeah. It was like Stone Cold. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It made me think of the river scene from City Slickers, like that.
Yeah.
Kind of tension to it. Except you don't have that sweet little forehead kiss at the end.
Really would have sealed it.
But yeah, that was a very jarring kind of like, wow, kind of like amazing stunt work kind of stuff, all being done clearly like, and like I'm looking close because you could see the one stunt guy holding onto the stunt woman, but like, I'm like, there's no safety precautions here. This is the 50s.
Right. This is before they invented safety.
It's like
this is such like a confusing, like a confounding movie. Like they tried to mash all of these kind of crazy ideas together and hope it stuck. And I guess it kind of does, but it's such a bizarre watch.
Yeah, because then we get the final scene where they're raising money by auctioning off the women. But at the same time,
as you do.
Yeah. What are the implications here? Like what?
Because then it gets to the point.
What does that 30 cents get me?
Just a little bit of light human trafficking.
Because it's implied like it's implied that each, like if you were to win one of these fertile women, you after the money is transferred, you immediately get married. It's crazy.
It seems it's bizarre because Judd is like, no matter what, is bidding 2 bits more than anybody else, to the point that Curly has to sell his gun, sell all of his own, all of his possessions, his horse. So basically, the guy has no way of making money now in the future, but he's the perfect future husband. But to outbid Judd, and it was like, it's weird. It's almost like, if it was to fundraise, it's like, yeah, you fundraised, great, we can go out and like have a picnic. But no, I'm not gonna fuck you, Rod. It's like, it was such a weird movie that what then happens is, so when we were talking about how we build up to the third act being A Time to Kill, that's the last 6 minutes of the movie, because it builds up to the point where sort of they've got married. They're doing some weird tradition, it seems, in Oklahoma of making them stand on top of a bunch of hay and throwing things at them. Oklahoma, this is your traditions, not mine. But this
Oklahoma
is
Bring
gets
that
it.
back. That's fun to throw things at the bride and groom. I'm in favor of this,
but
especially if it's a destination wedding. I think it's required.
But then Rod Steiger turns up, sets a fire, and then starts trying to burn them to death. And I thought this is where we're building up some great old Hollywood, big swinging punch fest, like James Dean punches from Giant, those big swinging punches. Instead, what happens is Curly jumps off the hay.
He throws off what's her face off
Lori.
What seems like 10 feet. I mean,
10, 15 feet.
Pretty insane.
It's a good distance.
Definitely broke her femur.
But again, like, I'm watching this movie thinking something horrible is going to happen, and when he lights that hay bale, that thing on fire, I'm like, oh my god, they're just going to fucking burn to death. That's not where I thought this was going to go. But no, he throws his sweetie off, breaks her coccyx, and then go ahead, you can finish it from here.
Well, this is the thing, is that then he jumps off, and it's a kind of like he tackles Judd.
Like a wrestling, like a lucha libre style leap into the air.
Yeah, 100%. It was like, it's
this is when I woke up,
man. It's like Hell in a Cell.
Yes, yes.
And he
broke
jumps
that man in half.
And they just collapse to the floor, and they go, "Oh,
shit,
Judd's dead. He fell on his own knife." And you're like, "What?"
I was fucking baffled.
I was waiting for him to come back to life, or there being some sort of no. So the antagonist. We've built up to the big moment, and he's dead now. He's dead, and this is where it got crazy, because then you're like, oh, there's going to be a thing about, because the sheriff or whatever is like, well, this has to go in front of a judge, and the community just goes, let's just hold a court, like let's hold a trial right here in the kitchen. Not guilty. Credits.
I was.
Yeah, that's how we do justice in the South.
Unbelievable. The case was closed by breakfast.
It was over breakfast.
It was over breakfast. Yes, it was. I mean, almost immediately. And then you have the guy who's for most of the film has been a complete fucking hard ass. He's like, "Hey, do you mean to do it?" He's like, not really." He's like, "All right, it's closed." It's just James fucking Whitmore. Crazy. Yeah. It's crazy.
With a spoon, not guilty.
Wearing and I think James Whitmore was like, I don't know, 30 years old, but the makeup they put on him
covered him in powder.
Well, it's like what you were saying. It's like you're either a child in this movie or an elderly at 40. And they just kind of put like soot and shit in your hair to make you look old. Even the aunt, like, she didn't look like an old woman. She didn't look like the Wicked Witch of the West. She just they just spackled her up with.
She was 37 years old, buddy.
Yeah.
Great grandmother.
Yeah. From all the churning. Keeps you virile.
I do like how, like, literally this guy is like the sheriff, or I don't know, the justice of the peace or whatever, and
the
like
Judge
was just like, shh, this hush, not guilty, right? Yeah. The end. And they just ride off. They sing Oklahoma and then ride off into the sunset. The end. I was like, what? It was so bizarre that like 2 hours and 18 minutes of who's going to go to the dance.
It's abrupt.
6 minutes of murder trial and. Lived happily ever after.
It's like they're like, well, we only have time. We've only written one more song, so let's wrap this up. I get to it.
And that's probably not too far off. I mean, with like a lot of musicals back in the day, that's the focus, is the musical numbers.
Sure. Yeah.
And like, like I think Phantom of the Opera is like the most famous one, where it's like it's all songs and then like 10 minutes of plot, and then at the end they're like, the Phantom lets them go. I don't know, whatever. Anyway, credits. Get out of here.
Yeah. We've already got their money. Let's go.
Yeah.
We got to get ready for the second show.
Yeah, we got to start writing Oklahoma 2. Judd's Revenge.
The Legend of Judd's Gold.
I would watch that fucking movie. You laugh.
The only other thing I have left to say about this movie is I am glad I've seen it, because now I do have a better appreciation for other movies or shows that have like references to this movie. I was telling you guys, Watchmen. Like, Watchmen has a lot of references to Oklahoma, especially that opening episode of that show.
Yeah.
The lyric, I love this lyric that they took. It's summer and we're running out of ice. I love that. That's the first episode title, and I love how cryptic that is.
Mm-hmm.
So And what's his name? Don Johnson's name
Oh
is
yeah.
Judd in the show.
Yeah, that's
So
right.
there's a lot they took.
I gotta rewatch. Now I have to rewatch The Watchmen again
Oh, good.
to
I
As you
appreciate.
rewatched it
should.
about 6
Yeah.
months ago. It is so bloody good.
It's awesome.
And especially in what it does in that opening scene, that opening episode is what it did was shine a light on a moment in history that had been in many ways swept under the rug.
Yeah.
You know, the Tulsa Race Massacre, which at the time was framed as the Tulsa Race Riots. You know, this is a time when Black Wall Street was a very successful place, and essentially the white people of this area couldn't take seeing the success of all of these black people, so came in and destroyed it. And I remember the headline on the newspaper the next day being race riots in Tulsa, 2 whites dead. You know, not talking about the hundreds of black people that have been killed. And the reason I bring that up is because it's an excellent segue into another piece of history of Oklahoma that in many ways got swept under the rug and ignored, and has a very, very similar undertone to it. Let's go and talk
Twister.
about Killers of the Twister.
You were teeing me up on that one. Sorry.
Let's talk about Killers of the Flower Moon, and that new picture from Martin Scorsese. So it stars Lily Gladstone in,
Incredible.
I think this is going to just launch her. She's been in Reservation Dogs, a show that I've heard
Very
great
good.
things about. Like some of my
Yeah.
Very good.
my native buddy, he was talking about it being so funny. He's like, this show's
good.
brilliant.
And not that it's just funny, it's got a lot of heart. Like, it's a really well done
Yeah.
show, and I think it really encapsulates that culture as well too. I think it's fantastic.
But Lily Gladstone plays Molly Kyle. So this is not a fiction movie. This is true story. You know, this movie is based off a book. It's based off real things. It's based off something called the Reign of Terror, which happened in the Osage Nation in the 1920s in Oklahoma. But the fact that this is a Scorsese movie, and I'm glad, and it's true to say that it stars Lily Gladstone along with Leonardo DiCaprio, Robert De Niro. You know what I mean? Is those two guys, two absolute icons, especially for working with Scorsese for basically their entire careers. Lily Gladstone is
She absolutely steals it. She
just
steals
a
the
wow.
show.
Yeah.
She's definitely she's definitely the core of this film, 100%.
Yeah.
So Ryan, you know, you definitely fast forwarded through Oklahoma, and you fast forwarded a little bit through Killers of the Flower Moon as well.
So I want to precursors, like, this is one of those movies where I honestly didn't have much of a desire. Like, I wasn't yearning to go see this movie. It was one of those, like, I'll watch it when I can. I just wasn't. I think on all of the hype built around it too kind of fed into that the way I see movies. So I wasn't really like gassed to go see it. And then having to do it for this podcast, I had to just like suck it up. Like, nope, I got to do it. But it was a tough watch. Like, it's a, you know, Will, I think Will, you had already seen it prior to
Yeah.
this,
before, hadn't you?
and it's paced very well. It's very much a Scorsese film, but the runtime it's tedious. You know, it's a long commitment to see in the theater for me.
See, I was in the camp of it's too short. I felt the same way about The Irishman, where I'm like, I could have sat here for another hour. Like, and that's not me being like jokey. I'm like, I'm literally enjoying it this much. And this movie, I really, it's my favorite movie of the year so far. We still have a Godzilla movie to come out this year, so I'm gonna hold off.
Martin Scorsese's Godzilla,
Starring
starring Leonardo DiCaprio as Godzilla.
I'd watch it. I'd watch a 9-hour cut of that. But yeah, no, this movie, I was engaged in trying. I did not feel like, I did not. When we left the theater, for example, everybody I was hearing just being like, "Wow, that was only 3.5 hours." Like, it was like universal. Like, people were like, "Yeah, could have kept going." Like, I actually lost track of time because you're just so. I think a big part of it is, yes, it's a great movie. Yes, like, it's well made, well acted. But I think you're just sitting there the entire movie waiting for justice to happen. You're like, surely something. I mean, I'm watching the movie and I'm like, I'm amazed the FBI got involved, because normally for things like this, it would just be silence from any law enforcement administration. The fact that agents showed up, I was like, oh, wow, surely there must be something good that comes from this. How
It
silly
was-
of me.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like you're saying is I remember I'm kind of like right between you. Because I'm with Will is I same thing about The Irishman. It's like I love these now that Scorsese is later in his life has so much power, and then with the backing of independent sort of like financing. So like he did Wolf of Wall Street independently financed outside of the studio system, so he could do it nearly 3 hours long and do whatever the hell he wants. And then when it comes to The Irishman with Netflix, he does the same thing, 3.5 hours. Same thing he does with Killer of the Flower Moon. He's like, no, I'm just going to tell the story. And his whole thing is like, look, fuck you. You sit and watch Netflix for 5-6 hours in a go. You'll binge a show. You can binge one of my movies. I'm just going to tell you the actual story without having to worry about whether or not it fits into a 90-minute runtime.
And I do appreciate that, but I just couldn't.
But that being said, is like there was like I'm just watching. I went to see it at like 11:30 in the morning on like a Wednesday, and there were quite a few people there to watch it, which I was quite impressed about. But I remember like I just had to make sure of the timing because it started later than I thought, and I had to make sure I was available to go and pick up my kids. And so I was like, oh, the movie must be like nearly done because of everything that's happening. So much has happened. I checked my phone, and I'm like, there's an hour and 10 minutes left in this movie. Good Lord!
Yeah,
And that's then.
Yeah.
5 minutes later is when the FBI show up, and it's now becomes something more of a Scorsese movie. It's a really interesting because it's different. I was saying to Zen, my missus, is that so many of Scorsese's movies are done with like the Scorsese voiceover, which kind of explains the who, the why, the where. Yeah. And in this case, it opens with a very little bit of voiceover, which is names of people murdered and there being no investigation. And then the movie just kind of starts. And you actually, if you don't know the history or the story, you have to pick it up through context clues about what it means, about why she's having to get money issued to her from the government, about what that is, about what head rights are, and all that other stuff. Instead of it just being explained to you through a DiCaprio voiceover, you're kind of just along for the ride and you're immersed in this world, and the immersion works. I mean, it's kind of like Oppenheimer felt like when you're in the town, you just the depth of the dress and the outfits and the horses and the cars and the everything else in between. It does take you back to another time.
Oh, it's super immersive, but it definitely for me still felt like a fucking homework assignment, you know.
Yeah.
The one thing I do miss though is there's scenes where they're in this gentleman's club where they have pool tables and barber shops. We need to bring those back. That's the coolest shit I've ever seen.
I agree. I want to be able to get a good old wet shave and then like play some pool and watch some sports on the telly, you know, while having a drink. Boom. Absolutely. While at the same time, maybe not murdering everybody at the same time.
To each their own.
Yeah. So to back it up just a little bit, the plot of the movie tells the true story of kind of like I was saying earlier is the reign of terror that happened with the Osage Nation, where basically it's kind of like that crippling irony of all of these native peoples were uprooted by the US government and put into reservations. Here, you go there, fuck off and die. Well, they managed to put the Osage Nation on just oil-rich like country to the point that, as we get from a title card at the beginning of the movie, means that the Osage Nation are the per capita wealthiest people in America, if not the world.
Yeah.
And if there's one thing white people back in the day, or just white people cannot abide, it's brown people.
It was literally white people hate this one simple trick.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Brown people having more money than them. But this is kind of what I find is to be kind of what I liked about the movie. Like the clever thing about the movie is that initially the script and initially Leonardo DiCaprio was going to play the Jesse Plemons character. It was about the FBI turning up to investigate it. And I think it was DiCaprio was kind of like, and where's the heart of this? Where's the actual, like, the story of this? And that's when they changed it to kind of make him the nephew of King, played by Robert De Niro. And it sets up the movie because you've got De Niro and you've got DiCaprio, and De Niro's character is played off like some white savior. It gives you a bit of like, it's a bit of a magic trick, not a magic trick, but the first hour things are happening. In the second hour, it becomes clear that they're the ones doing it. And then the
Yeah.
third hour is the investigation, and then it becomes kind of like a gangster movie, almost like set in
That's
the
because it's told from their perspective, and they're seen as like the protagonist. Like, he's seen as the protagonist when that's not really the case at all. It's just that this was what their fucked up minds were like. Hey, we're doing good here. You know, we're not the baddies.
I thought it was really, that's what I really liked about the movie, because it definitely, for me, I felt, you just felt those shifts, because it's like this messed up stuff is happening, and then you get little flashes of, wait a minute, that was them. And then it's like you realize it's just, once you start the sinking feeling of when you start to realize how it's all just conceited, it's all just one way of manipulation and then murder to then just get money from these people that they see as objects almost, is just, it grows and grows and grows and gets more and more uncomfortable, which is why
you distill it down.
show up.
Yeah, when you distill it down to like its simplest form, it's one of the most horrifying acts ever. I mean, they're like, we got to bring more white people in to marry into these Native American families so we can kill them and take their money. It's fucking horrible.
Yeah.
And they did like the lengths that which they'll go. I mean, the guy being interviewing his insurance guy, who's like, let me paint a picture for you. If I marry this woman and she dies, and then her kids, I kill them, do I get their money? Like, it's so fucking crazy how cavalier they are.
And the lawyer goes, yeah, well, look, to me, that sounds like you're going to murder those children to get their money. He goes, yeah, well, I'm not going to do it if I'm not going to get the money. So, you know, do I get the money? And
I'm not in trouble at all.
Yeah. But you're right. And it's something that you often, I mean, Scorsese does that in his movies, that when it comes to murder, in things like Goodfellas, in The Irishman, it's always just so casual pop. You know, it's kind of like that casual, it's just business, you know, when it comes to the mob. And for this one, it's like, well, it's only just so I can get money, and they're just natives. Who gives a fuck? You know, it's that kind of callous, who gives a shit? And they're like, it's Indian country. No one's going to come here. No one cares about this. We can do whatever we want. And it's that creeping disgust that builds and builds throughout the movie. Yeah. I was sitting near a couple. They were about 5 seats down. And it's like, they're all like, you know, they're probably like late 50s, early 60s white couple. And you could hear the wife getting more and more angry as the movie went on. And then like, just get, oh my God. And then when the movie ended, I could hear her sort of muttering to her husband, like, God, those poor people, the things that were done to those people. I'm like, this is the power of this movie. This is the power of Martin Scorsese. And the thing is like telling this story 100 years later, but going, this is messed up and shit like this still happens.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, there's even a bit in this movie where they're sitting in the theater watching the news about the Tulsa massacre.
The newsreel. Yeah.
And they look at each other like, good thing this could never possibly happen to us. And it does.
It's literally happening to you at the time. Will, I think you're muted, buddy.
Right, I am. Yeah, I was saying like De Niro's like watching that, you know, newsreel footage, kind of taking notes. Yeah. Just being like, oh, okay.
Stop actually rubbing my hands.
Yeah. This is how they did it. Gotcha.
I mean, a troubling time for Oklahoma, the 1920s. You know what I mean? And the thing about it is like there is a, you know, Oklahoma is a state that I have been to, and there is a lot of like native reservations. I remember recently reading something that they ruled that half of Tulsa is actually native. They're like, no, like, you know, because the city has grown so much, and they were trying to change the rules and zoning, and they go, no, that's theirs. That's your fault. That's your fault, white people. You grew into their land. Tough shit. You know, so it's like, I think it's, as a movie, I really, it's telling such an important story. But like, so to give a little bit more detail into like what we're sort of talking about is, it's so hard to watch because Lily Gladstone's main character, is it Annie? Molly. Right. It's just one thing after another for her. You know, it's one sister is murdered, the other sister is murdered, then her mother dies, played by Tantu Cardinal, that beautiful moment where she kind of sees her people and sort of walks off with them. It's just grief after grief after grief. She's also got diabetes, type 1 diabetes, and you've got that really messed up thing about how Robert De Niro, because she's so rich and because he's like, she's one of 5 people in the world that gets this new invention called insulin. But because she's causing trouble and she goes to Washington and gets the president's attention, they're having Leonardo DiCaprio drug her drugs. to keep her in bed and keep her sick. It's just, you just get so angry as it's going on. It's just disgusting.
And then you get the layer of disgust too about their I hate saying it, but like their half-breed children. You know, like and everyone else. It's fucking awful. It's awful.
Yeah. It's one of the things I really appreciate about the film that they played with is the character DiCaprio plays, and I forget his name. The character's name is it George?
Ernest Burkhart.
Yeah, Ernest. He you can never quite tell. You know he's lying to himself about like the harm and damage he's causing to like other people, but with Molly specifically, you're never quite sure. Like when he's giving her the drugs, how aware is he? Like, because to everyone else, it's obvious. Like, hey, guy, they're giving you drugs to poison your wife. Like, this is the most obvious thing in the world, and you don't know because Ernest is so stupid. It's so easily manipulated all the time. How aware is he that he's poisoning her? You get the sense that on some level he knows, but
I thought so.
This is the way I phrase it. He thinks he loves her enough that he's, that he's doing the right thing. I don't think he actually loves her. I think he thinks he loves her. Like,
they didn't really do I think I don't think they did enough to establish, because they have that really like adorable meet cute in the very beginning, but it's never established like they have these moments together, but I never really felt like he truly cared about her. But that's the thing, like he does a really good job of threading that line of like maybe he does, but it's hard to tell because they have these moments together. But at the end of the day, he's like, he wants that fucking that money, you know?
He's greedy and stupid.
Well, he explicitly says that. He's like, I love that money. Remember that gambling moment after they've robbed that couple kind of thing. I love that money. So yeah, we've got that motivation. And you're right, Will, as I think it's kind of like you're saying, is that he seems to tell himself, I think part of him does, but it's that moment, that defining moment at the end, with DiCaprio, where he's kind of said, I'll testify. Then he's backed off saying he won't testify. Then he comes back and says, because his kid dies, I'm going to admit to everything. And he admits to everything in front of Molly. She comes and sits. Now, at this point, she's back to feeling well because she's now not being drugged. She's actually just taking her.
And I think also, too, just to touch on what you were saying, well, like, De Niro is really instilling into DiCaprio's character. He's like, hey, make sure you give her all of this. Make sure you give her all of this. He says it over and over again. But I think also DiCaprio is like kind of backing off on that. Like he doesn't, just like what you were saying, he's not really giving it all. He's keeping her like just sick enough that she doesn't die.
Yeah,
but, right. Like,
because you see that moment that he doesn't put all of it in, he takes some of it because he's seeing that he's feeling regret, right? But but it finishes off in that moment where Molly goes, all right, because she knows, and she's like, so you've told me everything, right? There's nothing else you want to take. What were you giving me? And he goes, insulin. And she knows that he's lying, and that's when she walks out on him. I'm done with you. Fuck you. And I think I was really interested in that moment, as I think Molly, had he been honest, I think she could have moved on and almost forgiven, and because of him being open about it. But because in that moment he still chose to lie to her,
right?
No, she knows. That was like, I just love the subtlety of this movie. Like I said, it's some movies, they hit you over the head with it, like I said, and sometimes Scorcese will do it with his voiceover. In this case, it's such a drip, 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 drip of slowly just increasing tension, and
it's a testament to her her performance in this too, because it's so very neutral. Like there's no over the top, like she's not screaming. It's almost a very, like, I hate to use the phrase like deadpan kind of the way she's acting this out. But it's also because she's so heavily drugged for most of the film.
But also just as who she is. She kind of like her character, when she first gets into the cab and she's got her walls up and he just sort of slowly wears her down with a bit of humor. Like I said, the meet cute is cute. Like the movie sets you up with one thing, then it becomes another thing, and then it becomes that third thing.
Yeah.
She's so great in it. It's just it's a quiet performance, but but she does a lot of the speaking in that quiet. You know, a lot of the acting is happening in that. And then it's when the grief comes out. You know, I tell you, I put money on, I bet Lily Gladstone, 1 is nominated, but 2 wins for this, because I think
Crazy if she doesn't.
I agree.
Sure.
It'd be crazy, because she's just the first thing I did, and I saw many other people saying the same thing as I came out of the theater, and I'm like, who is Lily Gladstone? You know, it's like, who is she? Oh my goodness. Like, wow. To be able to walk into a Scorsese movie, to be able to walk in with these powerhouses and just to be that amazing.
It's just the definition of like a star-making performance. Like it's just like immediately you're drawn to her. She's like just magnetic on screen. Yeah.
Leaving the theater, I couldn't help but imagine, like, what Marvel character is she going to play? The next logical step for her.
I'm pulling for Mephisto.
What career-ending Marvel character is she going to be introduced as?
Either Galactus or Squirrel Girl. That's what I'm saying.
Why not both?
She could do it. I tell you, she's got the chops. Another side, like I kind of referenced it a little bit earlier, but like the Oppenheimer of it all, of just, it is I mean, so Scorsese, this is a story he really wanted to tell. And then when he took it to the Osage Nation and he says, like, I want to tell this story. And they said that with their cooperation, their collaboration, that actually changed how the story went, how it was told. I mean, I thought it was extremely respectful, but also just, it's shot almost entirely in Oklahoma, on Washington and Osage counties, I believe. So it's just so Oklahoma. There's so much outside. There's so much sweeping this, that, and the other. That what did you guys think about it? Because I thought it was like, wow.
I mean, they've been doing so much press for this movie, it's almost impossible not to see like Scorsese interviews about it. But like, you know, they were very hesitant to, you know, lend themselves for this story to be told unless it was told their way. And I think that it's a testament to him for how receptive they were, and then for him to bring them in as part of creating this film is so important, as being like just the heart and soul of Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing I do want to point out is when it comes to the press and promoting this movie, because of the actors strike, because of the SAG strike, the actors haven't been out there to like really promote it. And that is a shame that Lily Gladstone herself has not really been able to talk about it. Right. I saw somebody I follow on Twitter, somebody who is a First Nations creator, and they said, like, it's just such a shame that there is a movie out there that's really talking about their plight, and the stars themselves, who are First Nations people, can't go out and talk. It's like, man, even when like finally there's a chance for there to be a spotlight shined on them, there's something that comes up. And I'm all for the strike. Like I'm 100% behind the strike. But it's like, man, because the studios are dragging this out now, like they can't even promote this movie.
It's kind of ironic that it's a bunch of rich white people trying to hold on to more money causing this problem.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, you know, it drives you crazy.
Kind of like the ending of Wind River too, where, you know, you're kind of hoping for some semblance of a positive outcome from it, like because of this changed, but even at the end of this movie, you're like, no, things are still horrible, you know.
Even like Blue Bayou, remember that?
Like you want like a positive outcome, because that's kind of how we're conditioned to, you know, see and enjoy movies. Like you want that happy ending, and this really doesn't have it.
Well, it's got it. I really like how they did the ending.
I did enjoy that. I thought Scorsese doing it I thought that was a little overindulgent for me.
Well, I think, I mean, we'll get to that. So it does this really clever bit at the end where it kind of jumps forward in time, and I like what they do, because it's like the true crime podcast of the time.
Yes, exactly.
It's like a live sort of like true crime story talking about what the FBI does and about this particular case and about what happened. And you've got Jack White, you know, of the White Stripes.
I almost surprised Jack White.
Yeah, rocks up doing all this great voice work, and then you've got the Foley artist doing it live, and then you just, in that very, very last moment, you kind of, it's Scorsese gets up himself and tells the very sort of ending, and it's like, and kind of like you're saying, is it goes, all right, so like DiCaprio and De Niro's characters, they went to jail, like they went to prison, but De Niro got out. That guy's like, his character, his person, like what a dream world he's living in, still thinking, no, they're gonna welcome me back. I'm a man of God. Like what a delusional prick.
I've given them everything,
Yeah.
Yeah.
What a prick. But he ends up like living even like in Oklahoma on native land, eventually dying. But then when you finally get to sort of like, Molly's character, you find out, yeah, she died 10 years later. It was shit. And like what I do like that they didn't talk about the murders in her sort of eulogy, in her obituary, because I guess it's it was more than that, but it was such so messed up. It's so messed up.
I think the opening of the film is also like the dovetails into the very end of the film, where they're like no investigation, that kind of whole mentality. It's, oh man, it was incredible the way that they did it, but it was still such a gut punch having to kind of relive that. Like that epilogue just wasn't what you wanted it to be,
I think it's I think it comes back to kind of what Will was saying, and I think that Scorsese's been doing a great job, like saying there's no SAG out there right now talking about it, so Scorsese's having to do it all sort of on his own. And I definitely don't want it to seem like he's coming off like the white savior thing, but it's more like you're just glad, one, he told the story, and two, like you're saying, Ryan, he went to them and they were like, tell it for us our way, and I think he did a great job.
He's a modern day Taylor Sheridan, I think is what we're trying to say.
Fixing problems left, right, and center.
Yeah. If the one thing I hope that it comes out of this is I hope that more Native and First Nations people like get to make their own movies and tell their own stories out of this. I hope it doesn't just stop on like we're letting legendary white directors tell these stories. I hope that we push a little bit further. But that being said, I thought this was an incredible film. I think it's an important film to watch.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And like I said, it's my favorite movie of the year so far, despite it being so sad and so like such a gut punch. I mean, I left the theater, and the people who were in the theater with me watching it, like there's one lady who came out and she was like, I'm just mad. I'm just mad. Like I don't know what to do with all that anger.
Yeah. But to be fair, she was mad about what happened to the white people.
Right. Yes.
It didn't get their money.
Yeah.
She's like, how are they going to get rich now?
Yeah. I can see this being a divisive film.
I think a couple of things. The thing that I like is the music. I really like the music. And apparently, so this is the 11th time that Scorsese's worked with this guy, but he just died a couple of months ago. So it's one of Scorsese's longtime collaborators, but they had this kind of like, what Scorsese is, he's really good about sometimes bringing modern music and modern feel to something that's set in the old way. And this one had this kind of like this strumming kind
I have to admit, I was waiting for the end credits to end with sympathy for the devil or like Gimme Shelter or something.
Gimme Shelter, I was gonna say.
That guitar that you're talking about, I'm like, is he doing it? Is he doing like a little Gimme Shelter in there? Like, I know there's some kind of like Rolling Stone, like it definitely felt, you're right, it felt like it had that Scorsese feel, but it felt like it was very much of that period, but it also had that little bit of modern.
It had a thing. It's like that bit where the oil starts shooting and you had all the native guys dancing in the oil in slow motion. And you had that kind of like, all right, okay, this is still a Scorsese movie. But I have to be honest that from that, it's very, Scorsese sometimes has that theatrical lighting and those dramatic camera whips and things like that. He stayed very far away from that.
It was very subtle, But you have that scene towards the middle where they're like lighting that house. The fire scene is just, I mean, the way it's shooting through the flames, it was so stunning. Mm-hmm. It's an incredible looking film. Like, obviously.
And I think, like kind of what Will's saying, it is a movie you should watch. I would sort of, unless you are a gargantuan movie nerd, I think you can wait to watch it on Apple Plus. I think do that. I think take it down like you're watching a Netflix true crime thing, and you are going to be left angry at the end of it. But I think it's a cracking movie. I mean, $200 million, $30 million of that is just DiCaprio's wages.
Yeah. His face.
No kidding.
Wild.
I love that when DiCaprio first meets his Uncle King, I think DiCaprio is supposed to be like 20, and
20
Robert De
something.
Niro is supposed to be 40.
Yeah, I've
It's
heard. Yeah, he's
just
supposed to be like 47.
But they didn't
76.
like do the de-aging kind of face
Yeah.
smash nonsense. They just did good old fashioned Oklahoma style makeup.
Yeah.
I also like I like DiCaprio. It's kind of like, you know, he's a bad guy. Why? Because he's got fucked up teeth. Like,
Because he uses an Android.
Yeah.
No iPhone for him.
Let's talk a little bit about like the last third of the movie, when suddenly we get Jesse Plemons, John Lithgow, Brendan Fraser.
John Lithgow was shocking. Like, that caught me off guard. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, shit.
And like, this is Brendan Fraser. I mean, this is before I think he did any of his like he blew up with when he won his Oscar. Was it The Whale?
The Whale, yeah.
And it's like, you know, it's his comeback. It was like in the middle of, I remember he turned up in that Soderbergh movie.
Oh yeah.
Benicio del Toro and from MCU. Oh my God.
That does not narrow it down.
Don Cheadle.
Jonathan.
Don Cheadle. And it was like, it was kind of a cool sort of slow movie, but then he turned up in that play, like he was great in it as well.
He had a huge fucking 10-gallon hat, that's for sure, right?
Yes, he did.
But he was great. I mean, he's only in this movie for like 3 minutes, but god damn, he crushes it.
Yeah, he does. He's only got about 6 or 7 lines, but he's got a real presence. But Jesse Plemons is a guy that is just
so good,
so under the radar ninja. Like when he turns up in something, like he's always great. You know, he's so good. And like, what did you guys think?
I love him and everything. If you can watch him in the season 2 of Fargo, it's fantastic. Or I think it's maybe season 3, but famously Todd from Breaking Bad. Which I know Ollie has never seen.
I'm sorry, he's fantastic. I love him and everything. I can't not think of Meth Damon every time I see him.
Meth Damon.
Yeah, that's all I think. I'm very sorry, but I love it. And he's fantastic in this.
But also as Gary in Game Night, come on.
Yes.
Yeah, I was gonna say
bring up.
Game Night, he's great. Power of the Dog, he was really great in that as well. He's in The Irishman. I don't remember. Like Bridge of Spies. Yeah, I mean the thing is, he just rocks up. He's
Jungle
just so
Cruise. Come on.
Yeah. He's so casually good.
Friday Night Lights.
Yeah. Overall, I mean, like anything else from Killers of the Flower Moon, like, you know, Ryan, when it hits Apple, are you going to rewatch it?
No, probably not.
No.
Same thing with Oppenheimer. Like, it's not a movie I want to relive. You know, it's just for how it's gonna make me feel. It's not like I really can't wait to rewatch this. I don't know.
I want to rewatch Oppenheimer. The second that thing lands on a streamer, I'm watching the shit out of that. I think I want to. Zen hasn't seen that one yet.
I think ending it with a blooper reel was a huge mistake. Sorry,
Jackie Chan is great in that blooper reel.
Yeah.
Too bad they cut him out of the actual movie, but yeah.
So Will, you're
and Chris Tucker.
Yeah. Like, so Will, like this for you is like best movie of the year. So like, are you gonna be like, you know, once it hits Apple, gonna be watching that again?
Nothing can make me pay for Apple TV. So I'm not going to do that. But when it inevitably comes to like Criterion or something, I'm going to buy it. I mean, Scorsese has been on this streak these last like few movies that is like unrivaled for a director at his age. I mean, so he's got, you know, Wolf of Wall Street, Silence, Irishman, and then now this. And it's like, man, this is, if I could have a career even 1/10 as successful at his age, that's like that, I'd be the happiest person ever. So just for the appreciation, for me, just for the appreciation of like what he's working at, like at this level is at that age. It's just,
I appreciate that, but I think for me the tipping point was Gangs of New York. Everything after that just didn't resonate with me nearly as much.
Really?
I can understand that, because Gangs of New York has like the best opening 20 minutes of like any movie where I was like, yes, I am in. Give me this, and then it doesn't ever quite get that good.
Ooh, disagree. I love Gangs of New York is one of my favorites.
That's a good
it's good, but there's just something like I might need to watch it again, because I loved that opening 20 minutes like so much, and then the rest of the movie's good, just not that good.
You want rickshaws?
Yes.
Gangs of New York. There's a
10,000%.
time machine. What?
I think Scorsese is aware as well, like of his run, because recently he's been talking about like the whole just feeling like he's running out of time. He feels like he's got so many more movies to say, and he's like, the one thing he's like, yeah, mortality sucks because I'm not going to be around. You know, like I mean, he's going to be like Clint Eastwood directing shit in his 90s, if I had to guess. But like, I mean, he's already got 2 or 3 more projects planned with DiCaprio that they're trying to get made. And I'm like,
too.
I mean, look, I mean, I'm with, you know, I'm the opposite, Ryan. From Gangs of New York, you get Gangs of New York, Aviator, Departed, Shutter Island, Hugo, Wolf of Wall Street, Silence, Irishman, Killers of the Flower Moon. I mean, those are some of my favorites outside.
I mean, I do like The Departed, but everything else just like, I don't know. I think it's just, but I'm also like, I think it's just too much DiCaprio, man. I don't know. I
disagree. Again, I love.
I know.
I mean, for me, it's like I think I've told you guys about this before, that my buddy Brad and I manifested Wolf of Wall Street. We read
keep bringing it up.
No, we were talking about the book. We were having a pint, and we were like, we were just. They should make a movie out of this, and our stunt casting was Martin Scorsese, Leonardo DiCaprio. If they made that movie, they would kill it.
Talking about The Departed, though.
No, Wolf.
No, because I thought you predicted The Departed. It was because you mentioned that on our Departed episode.
I can't remember, but yeah, Wolf of Wall Street was the one that, like, I was like, when they announced that, I go, that's going to be a perfect movie.
Trust me, Jonah Hill's going to be in it. It's going to be great.
But like, give me DiCaprio, man. I'm like, DiCaprio and Scorsese together. No, whatever they want to make, I'm going to watch.
That's your peanut butter and chocolate. I understand.
Yeah, I am on board. That it's yeah, sure, peanut butter and chocolate, but let's be honest, the one thing, the one morsel, the one meal that I can return to time and time again and enjoy it like it is the first time, is for our final movie, the 10 out of 10 100% perfect movie, No Notes. Will is already stretching to warm up for 1996's Twister.
Will, show me on the doll where Twister touched you. Jesus Christ. You look at this movie like a war crime.
I'm exaggerating a little bit, but yeah, no, I wasn't a fan. I did not like this movie.
How is that possible? It's pure popcorn. It's treasure. This movie made like $500 million at the box office in the 90s.
Sorry, you were breaking up there. Did you say trash? I think you said trash.
Oh my God, come on.
Like on my end.
It's Jan at his DeBontiest.
We explain what the Jan de Bont like references on the podcast, or do we just?
I think we did. Yeah, the Flatliners. Joel Schumacher movie shot by Jan de Bont.
This is Jan coming off Speed. This is Steven Spielberg produced. This is Industrial Light and Magic doing light and magic with these tornadoes. It still, to me, looks better than movies that are made nowadays. I think this movie is epic. Will, tell us everything that's wrong with it and why I'm wrong.
I mean, so I'll do this caveat, which is I was watching it while I was working, and my computer screen is like right here, and the TV screen is like right here, like as close as my iPad is right now. So I was looking at it pretty up close, and I was just glancing over, being like, these effects are rough, man. Like, I don't know. Like, I could see I could see the studio in the cutout shots from like where the green screen is supposed to be. I'm like, oh, yikes. So some of it was looking so bad.
Oscar nominated for best visual.
So
that could very well be, but
to back up, I think it's important to state that like back then, when this was such like a blockbuster movie, that there would be features about it, like on how they did the technology, because it was so new. They did they would do with Jurassic Park, like just there was like movie magic, like how they did it, And I think this is one of those where like CGI was still in such infancy that for them to get these effects, it was like such a big deal that they were excited to show how they did it. And I remember seeing that. I'm sure you're the same way. Like I loved seeing like movies in the making, how they did it. It was even I don't care if the movie was shit. I loved the technology and stuff like pushing this genre.
They released like these 20-minute behind the scenes,
Yeah.
30-minute design behind the scenes documentaries the 2 weeks running up to the movie coming out. They'd release them on a Saturday. I would just take everything. And so that's kind of what I wanted to get into with, is that because Ryan and I were talking about seeing this movie in theaters, and this movie blew my nuts off when I saw it in theaters. Like when you're looking at it through the lens of 1996, this is around the time like Jurassic Park has happened. We're just getting things like Independence Day. And it's like, because CGI is in its infancy, they're still doing old tricks and new tricks. They're bringing miniatures and things together. They're using old style animation and they're using CGI to mash it up. That, well, I was kind of saying last night, and kind of like I on the text thread, you know, I like saying live texted this movie to the guys, is if you watch the movie, it's all done from the perspective of like you're on, like it's almost like a YouTube video. It's shaky camera. It's inside.
You're on the ground.
Tornado through a window. It's kind of like District 9. You remember how District 9? There's amazing special effects, but it's kind of in the background. It's kind of on the shaky cams.
It blends in really well. Yeah, it makes it more immersive for sure.
That's what Twister does.
I mean, listen, there are shots, obviously, because this was in '96, that, you know, the CGI itself is like a little too polished, a little too clean. But I think that kind of, because it's blended with practical effects too, it just kind of adds to that. Whereas now, like, this entire movie would be CGI. It would be like, it would just be another, like, dare I say, like another geostorm where they have these like massive things. Yeah, where it's just like, there's no weight to it. Whereas this feels like, you know, when they're underneath that thing, hugging it, like you feel the tension of that Twister.
Yeah, this shit.
And that was just an F3.
Yeah. And the F2 solid F3. But like, but the sound as well of like, it's, again,
and the music too, like this biblical kind of like this, but I mean the ominous presence, like it's just this villain has its own soundtrack. Yeah, it just feels like you have this like this ethereal chanting.
Agreed. Like Mrs. and I were watching it, and I was laughing so much because she's like, "What are you laughing about?" And I go, "Will's shitting all over this," and I'm returning fire.
But I appreciate that. I get it. I get the hot takes. I got them too, man. Just not for this. You're wrong.
So this is the first time you've seen Twister. So like, no.
Okay. I saw it in theaters as well.
That's why I was like,
in
what?
theaters. I was 10 years old. So yeah, no, I went through the whole theatrical experience, and I as a kid, I did like it. But I never revisited it like all these years later. It's just kind of been one of those movies where I'm like, oh yeah, it's a good movie.
Yeah.
And watching this, I was like, wait a minute, hold on. Like, what is this movie? It starts off like, there's just little things about the movie that just kind of just break the reality for me. Like at the opening of the film.
The plot is insane. It's insane.
Like the opening of the film is like they're going into the cellar because like there's a tornado coming.
Which is an F5.
And which is an F5.
You get that over the news report, which is great.
Yeah, which I'll get into the weather monitoring in a bit because, oh my God. But the F5 is coming down, and the dad is holding the cellar door closed because they only have like a little, because it's not like a tornado shelter. It's literally just a cellar. So
what is a tornado shelter? But they got hit directly. It's a direct hit with an F5.
Okay, well, that's a tornado. I was giving the movie the benefit of the doubt because they have the tiniest little lock on that door, like that wouldn't stop a pigeon fart from breaking it. So, like that's their tornado
that lock is only certified for F1 to F4s.
Oh, that's what it is.
But this is an F5
from right to start. So, like the tornado rips the door and the dad into the sky, which I'm like, that makes sense. Nothing inside the shelter like goes up into the air, and
because
I'm like,
the door was like a sail. It kind of,
but then if that was the case, why didn't the dad stay with the family? That dad wanted to die. That's what I'm going with. That was the dad's clever suicide disguised as, oh no, I'm being taken away. Sorry, family.
I can't argue with that.
It was so dumb, and God, I don't know. There were so many instances in this movie. So. This is what I want to ask you guys. Their whole thing is they want these like little monitors, these little like balls to go into the air to like track data of the tornado because they've never gotten data inside the tornado. That's fine. That's okay. But then like the whole rest of the movie, it's like it's to track where the tornadoes are going to be or like predict their path. But throughout the whole movie, the weathermen and the weather service is predicting the path of the tornadoes because that's what they're following all the time.
Yeah, I also had this
So
thought
what
on my
is
rewatch.
it? Like, what are
I think
what are they studying?
They kind of touch on it like the
increase-
very end. Yeah, and to increase the warning time, sure, but I don't still fundamentally understand how that would work because it would only work in that one tornado, and once that tornado goes away, they just got all these
No. Okay,
metal balls
so
everywhere.
it's actually based off something that was being done in the late 80s. It's called Dorothy. What's the name of the dog from
Toto.
Toto.
Yeah, so the actual thing was called Toto, I believe. And so it was this exact sort of thing of they wanted, it's just basically the premise is science. They just need data. They want data so they can understand more about sort of tornadoes. So the point is to take it
So the
from a
military could
3-minute warning
weaponize them.
to a 15-minute warning. It's
Sure.
just so
Yeah,
people
yeah.
can have enough time because, you know, as someone who lives in Tornado Alley, it's like, it's very much, it's when a storm happens, the most realistic bit, I think, for me is like the drive-in, is that they sense the storm and they do what everybody does in Texas. Everybody in Oklahoma, we all do it. You go outside. You just go outside and you just start watching the sky.
So Ollie, when you have a storm coming in, you walk out like Bill Paxton, just pick up like a handful of dirt and just like drop it on the.
Well, it's that
that's
bit.
a tornado.
He's out there, but then the sky goes green. And they're like, greenish. That's what happens when the sky goes green. You know you're in danger. Okay, here it comes. The sky's gone green. Tornado.
To the cellar.
Yeah.
I feel like I thought I remembered a bit in this movie, and I know we've completely glazed over the plot, right?
We'll get there.
Yeah. But I thought there was, and maybe I remember because I think what I remember more so than the movie was the trailer for this movie, which was pretty notorious for having scenes in the trailer that weren't in the final film because they were just like spec to show that the CGI could work. But I thought there's a scene where they go into like a shed to hide and they look around and it's just like dangerously sharp farm equipment everywhere.
I love that bit. I love that.
Yeah,
like,
that's the end. That's the end where they go into the murder shed where like Leatherface.
But I didn't
keeps all his
see that,
knives and science.
Oh, that was there. That's there. That's one of my favorite gags. They walk in, they're like,
Maybe it
oh,
happened so quickly.
no.
Yeah. But
we gotta go.
But the fact that they weren't just completely shredded by being in the eye of this thing is crazy to me.
Tornadoes don't affect you unless you are right up next to it.
Yeah.
There's no wind, there's no force, there's no
Well, they were too light.
Anywhere.
They were too
you have
light.
to be right. You have to be touching the tornado for it to do anything. Even in F5.
They were.
I don't.
Yeah. The logistics are, I will admit, a little loosey goosey.
Don't understand any of this.
Damn, still fun
Perfect
times, man.
movie. No.
It's still fun. It's such a fun summer blockbuster popcorn movie.
Is
the science there? No.
Yes.
Why was the cow like floating around when the tornadoes were 2 miles down the road?
Well, they were sisters.
That's just a floating cow.
Yeah, we
They
got
were
sisters.
sisters.
You know,
Sisters.
There's still
They
nowhere.
had
They're
sisters.
not on the bridge.
They had a sidewinder. They had a jumper. I love how he's got.
Yeah, I
nicknames.
love the language in
He's
this
got-
movie. Yes.
Definitely got a
That's such a Michael
sidewinder for
Crichton
sure.
thing, too.
Yeah. No, the cow. That's because those were downdrafts and microblasts, dude. Jeez.
Yeah, man.
Science, Will.
But I think
Jeez,
going
man, do
back
your
to like,
research.
how do you turn like a weather, like this weather anomaly into a Jaws type of film that was such a huge fucking blockbuster?
Let's just step back real quick and go step for step as for why this movie is amazing. But we'll do the plot. So very quickly, the plot is Bill Paxton. We get that, actually, let's be honest, a great opening shot. That helicopter shot that goes all the way up to that truck, and they're doing.
It's a great looking film.
Then says Bill Paxton and Jamie Gertz's girlfriend, Jamie Gertz, who's just already sexy, doing an interesting accent. She's kind of trying to do Texas or some sort. My wife is always like, "What is this accent?"
Wearing her white power suit.
Yeah.
Her white power suit.
Be real careful when you put that comma.
Yeah.
But the premise is that Bill Paxton is trying to divorce Helen Hunt, his ex. They're both obsessed. She's obsessed with storms because we saw her dad die at the beginning. He's obsessed with storms because he's the extreme. And he turns up to get his divorce papers signed, and it's great because what we get is introduced to all these other characters, the Philip Seymour Hoffmans and all the other people named Greg or whatever. But
Yeah, they're all named Glenn. 12 guys, all named Glenn. They all look exactly the same.
They are not. There's Glenn, the guy who's a preacher. There's Glenn and Glenn, the kind of couple. Then there's Glenn, the mousy guy, and there's Glenn the. You know what? Never mind.
And there's Glenn with one. Yeah. There's Glenn with one end.
What I love.
He's the wild card.
Yeah.
Is we turn up, we meet them, and then we get Jamie Gertz, who just asks like all these questions about Dorothy. We're like, so why would you do that? And what are you trying to measure? And, well, how's that going to happen? And so we've got the exposition dump of everything we need to know, and then they go, all right, let's tornado. And
then, but before that, before that, you learn about what Will likes to call this movie, the suck zone. It's expertly delivered by Philip Seymour Hoffman in the most insane way.
Dude, the suck zone. It's all about the suck zone. This whole movie is about the suck zone. And unfortunately, Will thought
this whole movie is a suck zone.
In a suck zone, which is wrong. It's not. It's an F5. That's what it is. It's fucking perfect. Anyway, we're going to keep discussing how amazing it is because but to get back it just starts with that first tornado and it doesn't let up until the credits roll. It just thing to thing to thing to thing, scene to scene to scene to scene, action. And it's just, there's bits where they drop a goddamn gas truck just straight on the road. That explosion's just massive explosion. You see it shatter the screen.
By the way, everything drops only on the road. Yeah. Nothing drops in the trees. Nothing drops in the fields. Every single thing the tornado throws is only on the road.
But what do? They then reference it with a Jaws style, we need a bigger boat. He goes, we need to get off this road. It's like, even he's like going,
so that shot famously,
the combine harvester, the thing, and then an actual house. But
that's after that he says we got to get off this road.
I don't care.
It was once the teddy bear hits the windshield. He's like, we got to get off this road.
Teddy bear that apparently squeaks. What teddy bear squeaks? What are you talking about, movie? What is going on?
The tanker shot famously, Jan de Bont, they didn't get that on film. And he lied about it to the studio, so they had to reshoot it, and it cost $500,000.
No shit. Yeah. Dude, I tell
you,
his
debontiest.
Considering Will brought Hard Ticket to Hawaii to this fucking podcast, is now going, what thing squeaks? Dude, the squeak is that comedy beat of just like, I'm like, this,
Andy Sedaris knows what kind of movie he was making when he made Hard Ticket to Hawaii. Jan de Bont did not know what kind of it. I was even telling you guys, I promise you, this was Michael Crichton's Alien Abduction script. And then once they sold like Jurassic Park, they're like, well, you can't do another like in Congo. They're like, you can't do like monsters or aliens of another kind. And he's like, fuck. Okay, I'll just cross out alien and write down tornado, and didn't change anything else. Because if you make this an alien abduction movie, it 100% works the same way. Nothing about the movie changes.
So they're just alien attacks throughout. They're just like the ships get bigger until it's an F5 ship.
Yep, that is exactly what this is.
I can only get
that's
so
all
erect.
Michael Crichton did.
Yeah. Though I did see that Joss Whedon and Steve Zalian both took runs on the script as well. I did see.
I don't know if that's for the better or the worse.
Yeah, I did see that some crew definitely walked out on Jan de Bont. There was a bit of a trouble production.
Tom Hanks was supposed to be the lead, right?
Tom Hanks, he was the one that suggested Bill Paxton. Thank God, because Bill Paxton is perfection in this movie.
He's so great.
I'll criticize a lot. I will never criticize Bill Paxton. He's fantastic and fantastic in this.
And you did bring up a good point. Like, I don't understand all the hate towards weathermen. Like,
yeah, why is that like the selling out in like the weather? It's like, no, that's like the Cadillac of the weather world. That's like the steady job. They're not running out of weather. So like, you're always going to be in business. And it's good money. I did not understand.
Yeah, no, because it's the bit when Carrie Elwes refers to him being a weatherman that it's the straw that broke the case. Like I was saying, like I think it takes it, guys. It's basically like he called him the C word while at the same time sleeping with his mother. He's like, "You son of a!"
and they get into in such an almost not fight to a point where there's like no physical violence. He just kind of slaps his hat off his head.
Yeah,
which is like
it's the dorkiest thing I've ever seen on
crazy.
Say he's a sniff of the dirt are over. We know what
idea. Where this movie kind of falls apart for me is that he needs to go back to Helen Hunt's character, who is such a lesbian in this movie. I'm sorry. This just like if you watch this and rewatch it, like she's definitely a lesbian. And he leaves Jamie Gertz Jamie Gertz, star
Insane.
from Lost Boys,
Insane.
to go back to her.
That-
it is
Yeah,
baffling.
that's the most insane decision I've ever heard in my entire life. Yeah.
What? They got cows, guys. My favorite Jamie Gertz line is like, all those years you said you chased storms, I always deep down thought it was a metaphor.
Metaphor, yeah, because she's a relationship.
Metaphor
like
for
a
what?
relationship
Yeah, like, what are you
therapist. I said that
talking
out
about, you
loud.
dum-dum? Like, what do you
I
mean?
said that out loud. Yeah.
This movie, like, so there are many movies that live rent free in my head, my wife as well, and where they become quotes that you use throughout your life, but Twister is the one that I think has at least 30 that my wife and I use constantly. If we're ever on some random road, we're never on a random road, we're on Bob's road. If we ever need to explain something to each other, well, let me enlighten you. It's just, Carrie Elwes, man. Carrie Elwes, what
so
a
good.
great dick.
Yeah.
Literally playing fucking
dick.
Russ Wheeler from Days of Thunder.
Yeah.
It's great. It's great.
He's, and I also said to you guys over the text thread, like, because he is American, but why does his American accents in every movie seem wrong?
Yeah,
but every time he does a British accent, it seems correct.
He does a great British accent. Even I'm like, Carrie Elwes, that British actor that does like.
I've seen him speak in person. Like, I've been to like a book like speaking of his, and I'm just like, yeah, he's American.
You got your Twister Blu-ray signed?
Yeah.
Secretly, you were a fucking disguise.
Steelbook.
Yeah. Just make it out to Will. My name's Jeff. Make it out to Will. This is my dad's name.
No. Don't tell anybody about this.
Hey, do you want a picture? No.
Let's keep this off the socials if we could. Yeah.
This movie is amazing.
I want to give a shout out to like just the supporting cast of all of like the B team players on both of these guys. There's rival storm chasers, but I love when the reveal when they show Carrie Elwes is also working on a Dorothy that's called dot. But his little trackers are cubes instead of circles.
Unrealized.
Unrealized. Yeah. Fucking great. So
he's in it for the money, not the science. What money? What are we talking about? What is this? I don't know.
He got himself some corporate sponsorship.
Yeah, Tide is sponsoring this. Like, what do you mean corporate sponsorship for a weather experiment? Like, come on.
That's all the Pepsi
I buy
cans
two stacked blondes as undercover agents in Hawaii. I will not buy that any sponsor invests in weather science.
Hey, all this hate. Just remember, man, you made us watch Oklahoma.
That's true. This is me on my way to movie jail, just screaming as I'm being taken away. Like, and that movie wasn't good either. Locks me
fucking
up.
Nutcase is still rambling on about Twister. You don't understand.
Because I will say, like I said, the one thing that I disagreed with the most is when you said that the special effects look janky. I'm watching it on our bloody 60-inch TV, and I'm just pointing at it going, he is so wrong. Look at this shit. It looks great. This movie I still reference it as going, why can't they make movies that look like it's kind of the same way that I said about Blade Runner, is that there were ways when it was done in the older ways, when you're forced to get creative, it's done so much better. Kind of like Ryan was saying, you look at a geostorm, you look at something like that, where you've got these weather events that just don't look like there's
no weight to them.
No weight, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
These look like chunky. They're
even you get to, which came out much later, Steven Spielberg's War of the Worlds. Like with that plane crash, like you have these huge, massive, granted Spielberg, you have these huge, massive set pieces, but it just feels there's just so much more weight to it.
Yeah. For example, and again, where I agree is the scene post tornado in Wichita, where they actually went to a part of Wichita where they demolished so that's real, but they built that hydraulic house. It's the same sort of thing that I'm like, you've got a camera right there. It's a set that they can climb on, but then it can collapse, and you've got your actors in the foreground, that instead of it being like 16 different cuts and shows and tension, it's just no watch, we've built something that's going to collapse and then collapse again, that I'm like, that makes it feel very just tangible. It's a very tangible thing to this movie. See,
I think the dog is totally on board.
Toto, that's the dog's name. We got it. Perfect. We got it.
Toto, quiet. Yeah, I think for me, what took kind of wind out of my sails for that scene is like, okay, so that's Aunt. So what's it? Aunt Annie?
And it's Meg, right?
Meg,
but
and Meg.
we've seen this movie 100 times, and depending on which character and at what point in the movie, it's May or Meg. It's like they can't make up their minds, so they're always May, Meg, Meg. I'm like, what is her name? I still don't even know.
It's like over the top where they can't decide if Sly's character's name is Hawk or Hawks. These refer to both throughout the whole movie. But so they get to her house.
Lois Smith.
Yes, and she's a great actress. Like she's fantastic. But like spoilers for the scene, like the tornado, hits and like their house is collapsing. But she's fine. The dog's fine. Everybody's fine. There's not. It's like you're expecting there needs to be a death in this moment. Is what we're building towards. Somebody needs to lose something. Something needs to happen. No, that doesn't happen. It's all fine. If she's okay, and she's only got a bump on the head.
It's a time to kill logic. Her house was destroyed, but the dog is okay. So let's go to court, motherfucker.
No, but I think you do make a good point. I think the tension, but then it becomes this like revenge thriller where they have to stop. Like they really have to. They have to kill Twister. They have to kill this
May or Meg, like I'm not even joking, does say, like to Helen Hunt, you have to stop it. Like and
she says you've got to stop
my
this.
Mind at that moment.
You got to stop this.
You got to stop this. What she means is like no warning. She means no warning for tornadoes. You've got to stop this. You've got to mean because they got smashed. She says we barely had time. The sirens went off and it hit. We didn't even have time to get into the basement.
I didn't make it downstairs. Yeah.
No problems, Will. 10 out of 10.
That's what a tornado is. Like I don't know. Like it's just one of the. It's like
you gotta understand. This is pre 9/11, so there were no tornado warnings ever.
I don't know. Like I just remember at that moment, like losing my mind, like pacing the floor, just being like, "Stop this! What do you mean?"
Will physically getting ill from having to watch Twister.
Will, you were in California. Smoke some weed, man, and watch Twister. You need to
they should
chill.
be worrying about is earthquakes. Why
it's
isn't
funny
that
to me,
the thing
so
everyone's worried
is it
about?
is it ever like clearly established that they only have 3 Dorothys to get it right? Yeah. And they keep fucking up every time.
They do. They establish it right at the beginning, right after we've met everyone and before they go off to drive, and we get that musical scene where we see all the characters and it unites. They was like, Dorothy 1, secure. Dorothy 2 and 3, secure. So they let us know there's only 3. And then you got the inspiration of Meg's art. And yes. We got to make Dorothy fly.
But we're missing the most important scene of this movie when an almost alien style like group get together where you have every single character at this breakfast table at Aunt May's house. Just pure steak and eggs. It's amazing. Just fucking pure beef. Yeah. And I mean, you get to establish all the different character types, even though they're all kind of the same, but they establish Bill Paxton's character as the fucking wild card. What do they call
there was another Bill, an evil Bill. And I killed him. Yes. And,
the extreme! Yeah. But, you have Joe go upstairs to take a shower because they're just covered in tornado debris. And then you have Jamie Gertz's character, who's basically the exposition dump for all of us as the audience. They're talking about the Fujita scale, right? Which is the only reason I know about it is because of this movie.
Depends on how much a tornado eats.
Correct.
Eats?
Yes.
Destroys.
Yeah.
I can quote this whole fucking movie.
Yeah. And she's asking the hard-hitting questions. They go like, hey, it's rated on the scale of F3. She's like, yeah, I reckon it was an F4. And she goes, has there ever been an F5? And everyone just like spits their fucking eggs out and just like, what?
I was like,
you get out of this house. How dare you ask?
Like, it's like she summoned Voldemort, like you said. It's amazing.
That's right. Yeah. You said that must not be named. Has anyone ever seen an F5? And again, it's like, and like I love Bill Paxton's acting. He's like, only one of us sits back, looks up at where she is, like showering
in the shower, like only one of us.
Okay, who's he talking about? I can't put it together. I think like
Helen Hunt, who changed.
Well, there's no way Jamie Gertz's character understood that. Like like only one of us. She didn't get it at all. No. She doesn't understand what metaphors are. So there's no chance she got that.
Yeah, we're talking shit about Jamie Gertz. I mean, come on, man. I got to draw the line.
Jamie Gertz is fantastic. And is lovely. And Jamie, if you're listening, what's up? What are you doing?
Dude,
let's
the
twist
night
again.
Tornado, right? The twister that hits while they're watching the movie. One, you get that great effect of the movie being projected onto the side of the tornado.
So fucking cool.
It's just at the moment of here's Johnny, love it. no notes, and then the practical effects of like, no, let's just send some cars through roofs, let's just knock some things over, let's put some sparks and shit. That shit looks great.
It's cool. Yeah.
Sign me up. It's brilliant.
That would be like such
Again,
a terrifying thing. Like, because up until this point, you only really ever see like tornadoes during the day. You don't really think of one in the nighttime because you don't see it. So
that's the scary shit when it happens for real.
Really, yeah, for sure.
Tornadoes at night are terrifying.
Just being at a drive-in theater alone watching The Shining is terrifying enough. To have this tornado fucking wipe through it is harrowing. No.
Perfect.
I mean, my question is, once the cars are going through like the shelter they're in, it starts tearing off the roof. The wind is again very specific about what it picks up. Nobody inside is affected by like the high winds. Just anything outside and parts of the roof.
I don't check my notes as to, because they were sideswiped. There was not a direct hit.
Oh, they were sideswiped.
Those were downdrafts and microbursts. It's explained, Will. The direct hit happens to Wakita. Actually,
I think Ollie just inadvertently proved a point that this is why people hate fucking weathermen. You smug son of a bitch. Brought to you by
really
Big
enjoyed
Twister.
your weather report.
Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah.
Dude, I swear, I'm loving this. I'm loving this discourse. It's fucking making my absolute day, because at the same time, there's nothing. You could take me to court. No one could convince me this movie isn't awesome.
You got the Field of Dreams blinders on, man.
I love this movie. There's the bit like
It's so fun.
when they're running away from the F5, when it's coming towards them, and you get that all the bits like the fence is being picked up behind them and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The effects of
So cool.
them coming in like and just digging into the wall. Awesome. I love that. And then like we finish off the movie with that amazing shot going all the way up in the helicopter. Finally, you see the tear. They've created a tear across this farmland, which I believe was shot in Iowa, because apparently Oklahoma had been changed by the weather. And then you've got Van Halen guitar solo. My missus and I have seen this movie 1,000 times. We watched the entire credits because it's shots of storms with just Van Halen, like just guitars. They were like sitting there just going, "Oh yeah, give me a cigarette." Woo!
Is it this? I wonder if this is the same composer as because Speed also had such an iconic like dun 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 dun. Yeah, such a great soundtrack. I wonder if it's the same guy.
Mark Mancina, Speed, Bad Boys, Twister, Training Day.
Oh, Bad Boy, yeah. Oh, you see it now, for sure.
And Moana.
Naturally.
Can't you tell?
No thoughts.
No, this movie was like a $90 million movie. It made $500 million. It made basically $500 million.
It was the first movie on DVD too, right?
Mm-hmm.
First movie on DVD. First movie on DVD. Last movie on HD DVD. Will has both.
That's cool.
Got them both ready. No. I did have the Twister DVD, which I never watched.
For sure.
But yeah, I think everybody had that because I think it was in that ugly, like clamshell.
Oh, now you don't like the DVD, huh? Is there anything you don't like about
like
this?
One of those like cardboard cases you're talking about? Like
yes, yeah, I think it was one of those.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's ones that if it got left out or got a slightly wet,
soggy DVD,
disaster.
Yep. But I like just to go back, like I really do miss, that era of when the technology was so integral into being a part of the movie that you got the production outside of it to show like, hey, we're using computers now to do this. And now it's just like, we're using the volume again. Fucking
right.
great,
it's almost a bit too lazy. It's like, when they're like, it's done well, you've got stuff like the Batman. And when it's sort of done like badly, well, not to say badly, but like there are certain Star Wars TV shows where I'm like,
it's noticeable. Like
very much so, because it's like, you're watching Obi-Wan or something like that, right? And they're standing in the middle of a desert on Tatooine. Well, if you watch any of the Star Wars movies where they shot them in bloody wherever it is, Morocco, there's wind when but these people are outside.
There's atmosphere,
and they're just nothing. There's no hair blowing in the wind. There's nothing. Everything is still, and like that's something that always makes me feel like, all right, we're in the
it's sterile. It's very sterile. Like you don't have that atmosphere. It doesn't, again, like it just doesn't feel, there's no weight to it.
The Batman, I can barely tell it's on volume.
I didn't even know until well after I'd seen it.
Yeah, I was like, oh shit, where did they shoot that outside? Nothing, it's inside. What?
It's so funny that Star Wars, Mandalorian like pioneered that, using the volume, and everyone was like, whoa. And yet Star Wars uses that technology worse than anyone else, because like you watch Star Trek and they use it perfectly, like because they use the same thing, but they're inside spaceships or inside meteors or something. When they go outside, they actually go outside, you know. So it's funny that Star Wars invented that and is using it worse than anybody, you know. And when you see good VFX these days, it blows you. Like the Creator just came out, and it's like you see something like that, which costs like a third of like what a Marvel movie costs, and it looks a million times better.
Yeah, I'm really wanting to see that. I'm ashamed that I am annoyed that it's not doing better than I was really expecting that to sort of blow up.
As a movie, it's fine. It's completely like I'm like, okay. I'm not happy. I'm not unhappy that I saw it. I'm like, oh, it was fun. But visually, it's like, wow.
Yeah, that's cool.
It pops.
Yeah, but fuck Twister, right?
I was sitting there the whole time being like, glad this ain't Twister.
But no, considering what we're saying, you know, regarding the volume and stuff, is that initially they wanted to be shot in the UK on sound stages and stuff, and Jan de Bont insisted shooting it outside in Oklahoma. He said it's going to be the last great action movie not shot on a soundstage, and it's the last great action movie ever made. I agree with Jan de Bont 100%. He was right, but that being said, it is shot in Oklahoma, all around Oklahoma. It's shot in Wichita. And you see that, you feel that. I cannot imagine shooting this on a sound.
Don't they have like a Twister museum, kind of like the Goonies, where they have where they got Dorothy down there chilling?
Yeah, they've got in Wichita. There's the Twister Museum, and then also that farmhouse on the 14th anniversary of the movie being released was destroyed by an F5 tornado. It actually, on the 14th anniversary, they were like, it was weird. It was like just like the movie, man, except this time it took the house out.
Wow. It would have had a warning, but you know, nobody wanted to say F5.
But the line delivery, missed it. The line delivery Helen Hunt has, where she's like, "You've never seen it miss this house, and then come after you." Fuck, I was like, God damn it, fuck this Twister.
Yeah, and then it's like, that's what you think happened, Joe? And then you cut to Jamie Gertz, okay, who with Felix Seymour Hoffman holding the most broken umbrella ever, doing absolutely nothing as Jamie Gertz looks like she is just in the middle of a shower while being sprayed with a fucking hose. I'm like, that's the most useless umbrella I've ever seen in my life. But no, nothing. No,
that's your only negative is the umbrella work in this movie.
Yeah, that just didn't work for me. This movie to me is absolutely one of my favorite watches. We get so much out of it every time. We enjoy it. It's a romp. It's popcorn.
I can't give this my usual this is a perfect movie for this podcast. This is a perfect movie.
It's not Ferris Bueller.
It's not perfect, but it's pretty fucking close.
Yeah, it's for me
on a scale of 1 to F5, it's a 4. A hard 4.
For me, it's a solid throbbing F5.
Well, what are they going to do for the sequel? Are they going to bump up? Does that scale go beyond 5? Is there going to be an F7? Is the military going to weaponize these Twisters? What's going to happen? It's
currently being shot in Oklahoma. I did see sort of like casting things go across, you know, because where I am, it's like I could go up and be an extra. I was tempted. It's called Twisters with a dollar sign.
Yeah.
And it's a Lego sequel. It's the Top Gun of. So I honestly,
with Glenn Powell, he's in the team.
If they had signed me the hell up, I want it
as a tornado.
If they don't have Van Halen doing guitar, I'm gonna be pissed. Anything else you want to shit on this movie for, Will, before we move on?
No, I don't really want to shit on it too much. It was just one of these watching it, and I'm like, I really was a kid when I watched this the first time, because none of these issues struck me when I was younger. But I will say, I love Bill Paxton. I'm so sad
I miss
that as a filmmaker I'll never get to work with him. Because I can't think of a dude who's been in more of my favorite movies. And he's just awesome in all of them. So that's great. I do believe it's shot really well. It's Jan de Bont.
Yeah.
So it's obviously shot by a cinematographer who knows what he's doing. So it looks cinematography wise, it looks great. I'm willing to back off my criticism of the VFX because I was sitting pretty close to the TV. So that probably didn't help that I was like, oh, not looking good there. But
did you have motion smoothing on as well?
That's how I watch everything. Motion smoothing on and
soap opera filter.
Yeah, that's
Extra
what,
brightness, 60 frames per second.
yeah, super bright, 60 frames. I do the whole, that's the way the TV
The
sold it to
way
me.
it was
So
supposed to be seen.
yeah, uh, but I will say this is not like one of my like so bad. This is like, what were they thinking? It's just one of these like, okay, I have not watched this in a while, and this is just not a nostalgic watch for me. This is like, oh wow.
I see. For me, it's the opposite. Like, there's nothing quite like this. That's a weather-based movie that has been able to capture the feeling of this movie. And maybe it was I was a product of when it came out. Like,
We'll say
even,
like weather-based disaster movies. Like
yeah,
this
like
is
any
this
Roland
is probably
Emmerich
the gold
film.
standard.
Yeah, because it's
It
still
is.
fun. Like, it's not
to
as
me, it's the top.
It's not dour. It's not like because the plot of all those movies is
Destroying the planet.
destroying the planet. Correct. It's just like, this is like an isolated thing that I thought it would spawn like Tsunami, the movie, and like in Hurricane, the movie. Like, but no, it's just Twister.
It's and for us, I mean, it's just a special place. I mean, my missus loves it. I love it. We watch it whenever there's a storm. It is like our thing. It's like, oh, time to put on Twister.
It's such a watchable movie.
Very. I mean, I like I said, I know Will disagrees, but for us, we can put it on and enjoy it every time.
Yeah.
We put it on.
And I'll go on record saying I don't love this nearly as much as Ollie does, but I do enjoy this movie.
It's beat for beat for beat for beat. So, all right, now's the time. I think this is going to be an interesting one. Is where we try to figure out which movie are we going to decide defines Oklahoma.
Sounds like you've already made up your mind.
A very interesting discussion, because we've got the 1955 movie, which is named after the state, which is iconic to the point of Will saying if we don't do it, we're going to get in trouble. Ironically shot in Arizona. You've got Twister, a movie that is really not much about Oklahoma, apart from the fact that it is, about tornadoes, and it is shot entirely there. It's based there. It's an Oklahoma-based movie. And then we've got Killers of the Flower Moon, a very Oklahoma movie, shot in Oklahoma, but at the same time, it's telling a story that is dark. It's a pretty messed up part of Oklahoma history as well. So I'm interested where we're going to go. Are we going to go with the history? Are we going to go with the literal? Or are we going to go with the razzmatazz? So where have you guys, what do you guys think?
Besides in name, does Oklahoma have anything to do with Oklahoma, or did I just miss all of the subtext?
Aside from the fact that they talk about it becoming a state. I mean, the thing about Oklahoma is it's weird. It's like, Texas and Oklahoma have this rivalry. They have the Red River Shootout. It's definitely football based. But the thing is, I've been to Oklahoma. You meet Oklahoma, and when you watch Oklahoma, they're just like Texans. They're a bunch of outdoorsy people that carry guns and like to go. The problem that Texans have with Oklahoma is it's not Texas, so fuck Oklahoma.
Fair enough.
Fundamentally, the musical, what does it really tell us about Oklahoma? Nothing.
Yeah, nothing. It's kind of more that once the movie came out, Oklahoma kind of adopted a lot of, especially like the music and stuff.
Yeah,
so it's kind of more like the movie doesn't represent Oklahoma. It's Oklahoma adopted the musical once it kind of became a hit. Yeah. So I'm personally, I'm throwing out Oklahoma. Like, it was like, no, that's not.
I was going to do that.
Table and I'm immediately throwing it out.
Yeah.
So I'm throwing it out of consideration for this part.
So we'll do a Ryan and we'll fast forward past it. Okay, done.
Yeah.
Oklahoma.
Just move past it. Just move past it.
Yeah.
But that being said, Twister versus Killers of the Flower Moon is an interesting two ends of the spectrum here. Because while Twister is, like I said, it's not fundamentally talking about Oklahoma. It is for certain times of the year where I live, there are certain parts of this country where when the storms happen, you're very aware of it. We're very aware. We're all communicating. We've got apps. We've got Doppler radar. And my wife,
Dorothy,
my wife is nuts that when there was a tornado not far, she's like, get in the car. We're chasing the tornado. She's a nutcase that goes towards the storms. So she is the extreme, in a way.
So you're the Helen Hunt in this scenario?
Yeah, I guess I'm the Helen Hunt. I guess so. Oh, Jamie Gertz. I'll be one of the two.
Just in the back on the phone. I told you, Carl.
We got cows.
She's not in love with your penis.
Well, she's not. She did not only marry your penis.
That's right. That's right. Jamie Gertz with the best line deliveries.
But yeah, because I think that because it's tough. Killers of the Flower Moon is telling an important story. Killers of the Flower Moon acknowledges that, guys,
Yeah.
Oklahoma is a big part of Oklahoma's history, is Native and First Nations. So I think it's really important. But at the same time, do we want to sort of like tag Oklahoma with being a bunch of racists
I mean, well,
that murder everyone that's not
there
them?
was, I think we did. I mean, we kind of hit on the same thing with like a Wind River. Does Oklahoma want to be known as like this, you know?
Yeah.
And I even though it is a very important part of history, I admit, but
Yeah, you don't want to gloss over it.
No, not by any means. But would you want that to be like, this is our signature, this is what we're on the map for, versus you know, because I hadn't seen Twister in like 20 years, I honestly had forgotten that how big of a part Oklahoma was to it. Like it didn't make sense, because at that time in that area, it could have been taken, like you have Tornado Alley, which stretches the whole like middle of America. It could be set in any of Middle America. Really,
it could have involved 4 states if they were doing
it.
And
I honestly thought it did. Like I thought they were kind of chasing around. I didn't realize it was just, you know, in this small part of America. But
I mean, like, if you think about it, you know, we get the Oklahoma of it all, that we do get the wide opens, but the small towns, we get the drive-ins, you know, again, it's very, very familiar to me. Texas is very similar in a way, you know, it's just got the mindset difference. But yeah, it does feel like Oklahoma. It does feel like America. It does feel like Tornado Alley. You've got real Wakita. You've got that great establishing shot, you know, with the water tower and stuff like that. So it's dripping in Oklahoma, but with none of it. I mean, like you're saying, Ryan, that you could have also said it in.
It could have been in Texas. Like it could. I mean, really could have been anywhere.
It could have been any of these
So
states.
by that logic, you have to give it to Killers of the Flower Moon, just because it's so integral in the history of Oklahoma as a state.
And it touches on the Tulsa massacre, and it touches on more of Oklahoma history, and touches on multiple different time periods too. It's brief, but we get the time jump towards the end, and then the last shot is literally modern day.
Yeah.
And so it covers more of the history of Oklahoma, as brief as the more of the history is, but it's so steeped in Oklahoma, you cannot remove it from that, because it's a historical event. My vote is with Killers of the Flower Moon, because yes, it's dark, yes, it's sad, but it is important, and it has to be set there, because that's where that story took place, and it's just all of it is Oklahoma. Whereas Twister, you know, we've seen now 9 movies on this podcast that have cornfields everywhere.
Yeah.
So it looks identical to the last 4 like states we watched.
It's true. But now, if you would have had a scene in Twister where it's Bill Paxton and Helen Hunt sitting in the car and the rain's coming down and she's just like, shh, just listen, we'd be having a very different conversation.
That's true.
I just wanted to point that out, because that scene was fucking incredible.
I have to agree with you guys that Killers of the Flower Moon it's all Oklahoma. It's shot in Oklahoma. Like Martin Scorcese going to the Osage Nation, you know, making sure this story is told right, told well. It is a dirty piece of history, but it is history nonetheless. That I think again, I'm going to agree with you. I think it has to go Killers of the Flower Moon, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So okay, all right. As you can hear that we're a little bummed, not because of. It's definitely not reflective of the movie. It's a movie that when you see it, you'll understand. It's gonna make you angry. And you're gonna want, you know. So I guess we're doing it right now. So there we go, the official movie for Oklahoma on the United States of a Movie podcast, at least until somebody brings a better movie to dethrone it, is 2023's Killers of the Flower Moon by Martin Scorsese. But that then segues me into also rans. What were your also rans? Because I was circling The Outsiders, another classic, very Oklahoma as well. It would have been, I think that may be coming up next time, but were there other also rans that you guys were thinking of? Any other 3-hour musicals, Will?
the remake of Oklahoma?
yeah, with Hugh Jackman.
Hugh Jackman, yeah. Right. No, I think I'd rather walk in front of a bus.
There were like a lot of other westerns that I just never seen. That's just not my genre.
Far and Away.
Yeah,
You mentioned
but I don't,
Rumblefish. I remember you said
which
that.
is kind of an offshoot of The Outsiders, isn't it? Like,
Yeah, it's very adjacent.
yeah, I don't know. It's
There's,
it was a
Yeah,
tough one. So odd list.
one of the things I kind of discovered when like looking forward at like the different states is how many movies or how many states have movies that are just like old 1930s and 40s westerns that nobody's heard of, and that's
Yeah.
almost all they got.
Yeah.
So I didn't. Oklahoma was one of these where I was like, I don't know how much, like, how deep I want to go into that filmography. That's why I'm excited to hear what like listeners have to say and what they can throw at us, because I definitely feel like I need some more suggestions, some more diverse suggestions. But I didn't really have any. What's up?
I almost threw Ghostbusters Afterlife in there.
Oh, if you really wanted to hear me hate on something,
oh yeah,
oh man, I would have ripped that movie to shreds. Watch the 2016 one instead. It's not a good movie, but man, is it better than Afterlife? Wow.
Disagree. Completely opposite opinion in my
Despite
case.
the fact that Paul Feig yelled at me about something I said about that 2016 Ghostbusters, I still recommend it.
What did you read your Twitter Twister rant?
He did read a tweet of mine about Ghostbusters, and he was not happy about it.
Oh shit!
Yeah.
Yeah,
but no hate.
There's a lot of old westerns. There's other stuff like The Highwayman. I remember watching that. August, Osage County. I remember hearing about that. So there's definitely some ones we can return to. There's the Black Wall Street Burning. So there's a movie about the race massacre that we were talking about. Unpregnant. So there's Children of the Corn is in there as well. I'm interested.
Of course it is.
Because
that movie's been danced around on like 3 or 4 episodes.
Every time we're going to state with corn.
Yeah.
So yeah, there are some interesting ones that I think we can return to. I think we've done. I'm glad we did Killers of the Flower Moon. Now that it's out, if you're listening to the podcast this Monday, it's in theaters. You can go see it. Otherwise, you're gonna have to wait for it to turn up on Apple Plus, unless you're like Will and you're like screw Apple and screw Twister.
Well, and Marty, if you're out there listening, this is now the 3rd movie we've done on our podcast. If you want to come on,
yeah, Marty Scorsese. We definitely have some love for Scorsese on this show. All right, fine. Last thing we have to do is to decide where we're going next week. I turned up. I was undecided as we were logging in. The one thing that you guys said is nowhere that has corn. So I had to change my mind from where I was thinking that we were going to go. So
Nebraska.
I think we're going to go. Honestly, I was circling Nebraska. I was circling Ohio. So instead, we're going to go top left. We're going to go to the state of Washington State. Though I have a loophole with this state that might mean that I can make corn a star of my movie, which I will pitch you guys as soon as I log off. I've got one that is technicality that could be quite fun to actually do on the podcast. So guys, put your thinking caps on. We're going to Washington. Think of it, Seattle. We're thinking like that. We've got some movies that I think we're already circling, popping into my head already. Until then, Will, thank you for the discourse today. Yeah. Very much enjoyed fighting.
I'm looking forward to this. I wanted to hear Will's hot takes.
It's brilliant.
We're going to have a new segment on here called Will's Hot Takes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do we have another 2 hours? Yeah.
That was the hottest of hot takes. Loved it. Ryan, thank you so much, guys. Great choices. Actually, you know what? Shit choices. Oklahoma was shit.
Agreed. And I brought.
And you hated Twister. Ryan slept through half of Killers of the Flower Moon. So we'll do better.
Nobody had fun. The way we like it.
Until then, don't forget, you can find us online. You can find the United States of a Movie on Facebook. You can find us on Reddit. Please do drop us comments. We do like hearing from you. Love it when you guys reach out and post under my videos that you can find every Monday, which will be about that on my That Englishman in Texas channel. You can also find me as Ollie_Pettigrew. You can find Will ranting and talking about movies in front of his Blu-ray collection on his TikTok entitled Willennial, where you can also find him on Twitter and things like that. And Ryan, you can only find on Threadless, though soon we're going to have other ways that we can sell his merchandise as well. But you can find him on Threadless, Rhino Digital, RYNO Digital. Last thing for me to say is if you are listening or watching us on YouTube, 1, thank you. 2, please hit subscribe. or notifications, please, on your app, if you're listening to us on a podcast, give us a rate. Just simply click. It takes 2 seconds, does help us out. And lastly, share this with your friends. It's so fun that we find people that are watching the movies with us. Love getting into the discussions. Had an amazing discussion about Stone Cold the other day with someone I was at a bar with. Loved it. So until then, put your thinking caps on. Next week, we'll be heading to the state of Washington. The only other thing to say is to everybody at home, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And we'll see you next week on the United States of a Movie podcast.